Where are the low-value men?
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site. You can believe that. You can believe that. You can believe that.
Contracted COVID, but says with a mixture of medicines, including the controversial horse dewormer that has poisoned hundreds of people nationwide, he's now recovered.
He was the best guy around.
What about the people he murdered?
What murder?
From the headlines to the whisper start. Low value mail. Low value mail at 9 o'clock. We're truth fiction. Take a walk.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon? You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Our stories are.
Oh boy! What's happening, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back to an all-new episode of Low Value Mail. It's episode number 133 on this Monday, January 13th, 2025, the year of our Lord. Shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. Also, shout out to everybody watching over on Rumble. The Rumble gods have blessed me one more time with putting me on the front page. Why? Because the show's that good. Before we get started, joining me tonight, we have a special guest in the second hour. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Joining me is illegitimate scholar. He's, I don't know how you define him, maybe a forbidden anthropologist, but he's a former Marine. He's certified to teach social studies, but he quit to create content on anthropology, writing on Twitter, videos, and interviews on YouTube. He's got a great channel. You can check it out, Illegitimate Scholar. I don't know if it's on Rumble. I know it's on YouTube. Check that out. He will be joining us somewhat shortly, I suppose. And before I get started, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, whether you're on Rumble or YouTube. And also, this goes for whether you're on Rumble or YouTube. I will read your super chats throughout the show if you drop them at certain points. And then also, this is only a YouTube thing. But I guess, you know what? I can even make it. I can be flexible on this, but, anyways, because the YouTube has these goal thingies. So if we hit 20 super chats throughout the show, we'll get an extra 30 minutes of unscreened open lines for all of us, I suppose. So if you want to do that, go ahead. All right. Number one story in the world. Of course it is the Los Angeles fires. If any of you are in Los Angeles, if you're currently surrounded by flames and you decided, you know what? Because Kamala Harris just told you, she said, hey, if you can find something to kind of take your mind off things, be a little patient. Maybe you're watching Low Value Mail right now to kind of kill some time. And it looks scary out there. I'm not going to lie. It looks real end of times. And it's funny because, you know, I live in New York. I'm a comedian. I live in New York. And when you move to, especially when you're doing comedy, you can move to New York or you move to LA. What is this? Is something not working here? What's going on? Uh-oh, now they're saying that, well, we got a problem here? Is there some sort of issue? Now it's saying the bit rate's too high. I just saw a call. The phone lines are not open. I saw a call, and whenever I see a call sometimes pop up, I'm worried that I screwed something up. But I didn't. Okay, so as I was saying about the fires, yes, when you move, you have two choices as a comedian: L.A. or New York City. New York City, you get lit on fire taking the subway. Los Angeles, it just is on fire. So it seems like it's just, you're not going to really avoid the fires, period. That's just, it's unavoidable as a comedian. I guess Austin is an option. And no, the phone lines are not open. And again, I think this whole thing, I think a lot of people understood this before. A lot of people definitely understood this crazy thing I'm about to say. Some people, many people I know, didn't really understand this, but it kind of matters who you vote for. It really does. It really matters who you vote for. People are like, hey, I don't know. I voted for diversity. This is what you get. You get diverse temperatures of flames. How's that for you? Okay. And this whole thing has been hard to watch. It sucks, obviously. Joe Biden just announced $770 for each person affected by the fires. I believe that's from courtesy of FEMA, which for the people living in LA, that equates to one Hermes scarf per person. Because again, these are mostly multimillionaires. It is interesting too, not to, downplay anything that they're going through, because, again, even if you're rich, still sucks if your fucking house burns down. I mean, makes it a little better if you have more than one house. Most people can't relate. But they got $770 a pop. It's $20 more than they got in North Carolina. $20 more than they got in North Carolina a few months ago. I'm curious, is that a cost of living thing? Is that they're getting an extra $20 because the cost of living is, what would that be, like 1%? What's $20 of, 10% would be 3%? Is that a cost of living or is that inflation? Because if we just had 3% inflation in the last 3 months, it's not good. It's not good. It's not good at all. Also, if you tuned in to the first installment of the Patreon audio-only episode that came out last Thursday, I was discussing about, there was this guy, Keith Wasserman, one of my people. He put out a tweet that he got absolutely demolished on. He had a house in Pacific Palisades, and he put out a tweet saying, are there any private firefighters available right now? Because if there are, we would love to hire some. Me and the neighbors would love to chip in for some private firefighters to put out these fires. And everybody was like, you rich fucking pieces of shit. People were mad about this. Goes, classic rich person move, huh? You think you could just buy your own firemen? You think you could just do that? You could just what? You could just throw money at all your problems? Yes. Literally, when you're rich, there's a lot of problems that will be solved by being rich. This wasn't one of them. He lost his house. And I was saying, I've never heard of private firefighters. I didn't know that was such a thing that existed. Turns out it does. There are private firefighters. This guy who ran for mayor, I believe his name's Jim Caruso. He owns a mall and a home in Los Angeles area. He hired private firefighters. It's like $2,000. I think it's $2,000 a day per firefighter. I believe that's what the number was. I mean, now that comes with, a giant tanker truck full of water. Like, you're not just getting the body at that point. Or if you own a private prison, it's only like $10 a day for a firefighter. You see all these, there's like 1,000 prisoners, something like that, who are helping fight the fire. Good on them. I mean, I guess that's how bad prison is, but, they're working for fighting fires for $10 a day. I think it was $10.84. But you can get like a professional non-murdering firefighter. Like you can get a firefighter who isn't currently incarcerated. It's about $2,000 a day, which seems a little steep. But hey, man, the guy saved his mall. He completely saved his mall. So that's on me, because I guess there are private firefighters. We like to talk about conspiracies on the show occasionally from time to time. Bring up a conspiracy. A lot of people want to know how these fires started. It's still very unclear. I believe there's PG&E, the Pacific Gas and Electric. That's the electricity provider out there. Apparently there's an investigation. They think there's maybe an electricity thing, which if that caused, again, they're backed by the state, so they can't go out of business. This isn't a private enterprise. But apparently there's now some thought that it was maybe some sort of faulty electrical deal. I don't know. Arson is obviously a big one. There was a video of someone taken right at the first fire where, you know, it might be something as little as just a couple kids getting stoned. I mean, if that's what happened, where they go, hey, it was like these kids just were smoking a joint and they just like threw out a joint and it lit Los Angeles on fire. Although they have I know a lot of Americans learn in school about the Great Chicago Fire, which I believe started in a somewhat mundane fashion, although that was a long time ago, so I don't think they had like current firefighting technology. But they say that was such a big fire. Apparently this one's like 4 times the size. So you better update those textbooks, I guess. But there is this one conspiracy. I don't know if anybody's looked into this, whether this is anything. This might be complete horseshit. But apparently someone, and this is going around. But apparently anybody who didn't have a smart meter on their home, because I guess these smart meters have these lithium batteries. Some people are saying this is complete horseshit. Other people are saying, look at all the homes that burned down. All the homes that didn't burn down didn't have these smart meters, because I guess something about these smart meters have a lithium battery, and then they basically like burn the house from the inside out. Doesn't really make sense to me. I don't know how big the battery is, but I mean, I've had a lithium battery blow up on me before in an iPhone. Doesn't seem like it could. I mean, it could burn down a house, I guess, if it was near something incredibly flammable, but usually a smart meter is drilled into a brick. I guess not all these homes were brick. A lot of them were wood. Whoops. But if you know anything about that, call in. Not right now, but I'm going to open the phone lines shortly. We're going to take some calls before bringing on the guest. There's a lot of fucked up shit going on, though. 2 people have been arrested for arson, a 39-year-old man and a 60-year-old woman, which good for her, you know? Normally, when a woman burns down, generally women are burning down homes. It's out of anger. It's usually their own home. And it's because they had an argument with their husband. They go, yeah, I'll show you. Burn down our home. How you like that? This other guy, I think everybody's kind of quick to say he's an illegal immigrant. I haven't been able to verify that in any way. They call him a transient. He's just like essentially a homeless person. And now look, if I was homeless, that would be a pretty good way to get back all the rich people you resent. Just burn down all their homes. Who knew it was so easy? You just got to wait for the winds to pick up and then bang. You just do it. But there's looters. Everybody's looting. It's like, this is what living in a low trust society is like. Is when people are at their absolute worst. And again, this isn't only America. There's other places like this that this would happen. When people are at their absolute, just in the gutter, people go on Amazon, buy a firefighter outfit, and probably Amazon's like, cool, someone's looking to chip in. No, they're dressing up as firemen. They are dressing up as firemen in order to blend in so then they can go loot people's places. And now, there's another thing I said on the Patreon show, which if you want to check that out, patreon.com/low-value-mail, $5 a month. But there is some weird element, and like where, and I don't condone any of this stuff, but at what point, like say like, you know, if the fire's 10 miles from your house, you can't go loot it. What if it's like 5 feet away and you go, that stuff's gone regardless. I'm taking a risk here by looting that shit. Not that it's acceptable. We don't need that. There's people apparently who are, I read some Twitter thread where someone was saying, I think it was Bill Ackman, but he was saying the insurance costs of this are going to be so insane because there's a lot of people who have like a $5 million house, and obviously boo-hoo, a lot of people, that's how they feel. But there's people with a $5 million house, but they have a $500 million art collection inside their house. And if they didn't get out in time, you know, assuming that you have your giant art collection insured, which I'm sure they do, the degree, and again, I don't give a shit about insurance companies. I don't. But it will be interesting to see all the fallout from all of this. Now, I mean, in terms of the start of this, because, you know, if you're into a conspiracy-minded person, like if you're thinking, you know, these are criminal gangs, South American criminal gangs, I just find it hard to believe that they are so organized that they could think so far ahead where they're like, look, we know it's really dry right now, even though, again, it's the desert. They go, we know it's really dry. The meteorologists, the weathermen, the weather people are calling for high winds, abnormally high winds. And so they're thinking, hey, we just set some fires. Everybody will have to evacuate their home because we know that the people in charge are just not equipped to deal with something like this, and the winds are so bad that they're not going to be able to do it. And then we're going to go rob everybody. I find that hard to believe. I do find that hard to believe. We have Batrick Pateman, super chat. He says PG&E caused the Paradise Fires in Northern Cali about 5 years ago. Gavin Newsom bailed PG&E out. He was seen eating at French Laundry with the CEO. Yeah, so exactly. So PG&E caused a huge fire 5 years ago, and they're a publicly traded company. But again, as much as they're a publicly traded company, they're just a utility. Like the California utility can't go under. It's classified as too big to fail. It just can't. All that happens is every Californian and maybe American, I don't know how much to the degree like the federal government kicks in, just socializes all these losses. You go, hey, your tax bill is a little higher because some fucking idiot at PG&E, the CEO who makes $40 million a year, he made a whoopsie. He did a little whoopsie, didn't he? Look at that. Dave Sarah says, great app about the Las Vegas guy, but we know who started the LA fires. Ray DeVito, Chad on guitar. Danny, this is the channel. Go follow Chad on guitar, everybody, that channel right there that he just posted from. Chad does the outro music to the show. Light Switch, go check it out. Do me a personal solid. Do him a personal solid. He's been a big contributor to the show. This is going to take a long time to rebuild. There's so much red tape in California. This is going to take a long time. And I mean, a lot of these, I've heard some things where they're like all those houses along the ocean. And again, these are the least sympathetic people. I know that everybody's trying to be like, you know, they're just people too. And they are. And again, if we were all lucky enough to have the fucking coin they have, I'm not trying to be a hater, and I'm not hating on them. I am sympathetic because it sucks to what happens. But they're saying like these people who lived on the beach in Malibu, they're like, they're not even going to allow them to rebuild those homes. So the you know, second, third order effects of all this will be impossible to really quantify what's going to happen here. This is going to take forever to rebuild. The state of California is going to lose over $1 billion in property taxes because your property taxes are based on the structure and the land. And apparently it's 2/3 of it goes to the structure, which are all gone. And then 1/3 of the property tax bill goes against your land. So California is going to lose over $1 billion in just property taxes alone. That doesn't factor in all the people who are maybe thinking about leaving California. They go, well, my home's here. And go, it's not though. It's not anymore. So you're out of here. So we'll see how this works. Again, they're probably just going to get a massive bailout. The government's just going to come in. Because, you know, these people, if you own a $10 million house, which many of these people did, many people owned a $10 million house, lost one, you kind of know some powerful people, right? You know, you might know Gavin Newsom. You might go to dinner with Gavin Newsom. Literally, you might know him. And so, like if this shit happened in Compton, this would be like Hurricane Katrina all over again. It would be like, we'd just be watching it on the news being like, yeah, what a tragedy. Hope somebody could help them. I don't know who's gonna, but hope we can. These people are going to make out just fine. In the short term, it sucks, obviously. But you'll see, watch, and I'm not trying to be some crazy leftist right now, but watch the fucking difference between this happening to these rich, affluent people versus people in North Carolina. They will get bailed out like they are a too big to fail bank. Because a lot of these people have insurance that only covered, they got cut off by their insurers because property values went up so much. The insurance companies are like, okay, well then our actuarial tables, they need to track these increased values and prices in the event of something like this happening. By the way, never bet against insurance companies. They're always right about this shit. Always. If they could just put the people who run the insurance companies in charge of the government, we would be so much better off, except for the people who run insurance companies make tons of money. And if you work for the government, you make much less money. So they have zero incentive to do anything like this. Right? But you'll see all these people get taken care of post haste. Poison 1553 drops a super chat. Gavin Newsom just signed an executive order to remove red tape so they can rebuild faster. Look at that. You think he'd do that for fucking Compton? Hell no. If that happened in Compton, he'd just be like, the red tape's the red tape, but let's do a clothing drive for everybody, and that'll be that. That would literally be that. A lot of people right now looking to pass the blame. I will say, everybody wants to give the gay firefighters a hard time. Now, the one gay firefighter, the chick who kind of looks like a dude, big dude too, who basically said, if people are worried about a firefighter rescuing you, and if your husband's in a fire, like it's his fault, basically. Like if I have to carry your husband out of a fire, he needs to ask himself what the hell he's doing in a fire. She should be fired. That's fair. But it seems like the firefighters are doing okay with what they have going for them. I mean, it's not great when you just run out of water pressure. It's not and look, everyone's looking to pass the blame. It's crazy because, again, if this is private enterprise, we're talking about just a business. You just go to the CEO and you go, hey, this happened under your watch. You're out. The crazy thing is Californians are so retarded, pardon my French, R-worded. Gavin Newsom might get reelected next year. I wouldn't even be, and you'd just be like, there's no hope for these people. There's none. There's zero hope for these people because after all of this, the mayor, the governor, the people who are at the end of the day, the buck stops with them. They're probably going to still get reelected. And now again, it could be one of those things where he goes, hey, sorry about this, but we're going to throw so much cash at this problem where you're going to forget this even happened just to buy those votes back up. It's possible. But again, would they ever do this in Compton? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It just wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. And, it does kind of make you think how if a hostile country, like a hostile foreign nation wanted to fuck with America, there's so many things they could do that are just like so easy that can cause so much chaos. Like this, like you just bring 10 dudes over the border, sneak them in, give them a blowtorch, just start causing fires. And by the way, I have a question. I have a real question. So they have this stuff, Foscheck LC95. It's pink fire retardant. By the way, why are you allowed to say retardant, but you're not allowed to say retarded? It's one or the other. It's either we see them both or none of them. It doesn't seem fair. We need to have a national referendum on this. I don't care if we need to go into the votes. It has to be one or the other, or not one or the other. It's both or none of them. Anyways, but so you've seen them, these giant planes dropping this fire retardant stuff. And then all these people are like, we didn't have any water because the pressure ran out. They're saying some people are like, there wasn't enough water, although there was an entire basin that was just happened to be empty. Whoops. But they have this fire retardant stuff. Why can't you just have why doesn't everybody just have, a bunch of 4-gallon buckets of this stuff in their garage, their car hold? Why don't they just have that and just spray down your house? Now again, I guess people just don't prepare. I'm sure there's some preppers who are watching this, right? Some of you are preppers. Some of you are very prepared people, I would imagine. Very prepared. And you're like, I would have that. But it seems like one of those things. I was looking it up. It's I think like a 4-gallon or like 8-gallon bucket. It's like $175. You hook up a little sprayer to that thing, just spray down your whole house. You're golden. I mean, again, now I'm not saying 1 4-gallon bucket would get your house done, but it's like you have a $5 million house. I don't know. Have $5,000 worth of this shit in your house, or just have it on call. You go, hey, like, look, if you're the governor of California, it is your job to know that in a fire of this magnitude, there will be no water pressure. Like, that is literally, if you're the mayor or the governor, that is your job. Like, if you run a hedge fund, for example, where your whole job is essentially managing risk, you have every possible scenario outlined. You go, this could happen and then this will happen. These are all the potential scenarios. These ones have a 0.1% chance of happening. These ones have a 90% chance of happening. But you know all of these potentials. And so if you're the people who are in charge of these places, you should at least know that you go, hey, there's a 3% chance that there's a massive fire coupled with high winds, 100-mile-an-hour winds, massive fire. The water pressure will instantly be gone. The fire hydrants will essentially be running empty. Let's go get a fucking warehouse full of this Foscheck LC95 stuff. And then just instead of when firefighters run out, you just hand them a bucket with a sprayer and just start spraying shit down. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. It's possible I do not know what I'm talking about, but that just seems so obvious. You can't, I was looking on, I think it was Home Depot. Excuse me. Totally sold out there though. But there's nothing. I think Lowe's had it. You get them on Lowe's. So, again, could totally be wrong on this. I don't know. Okay. Let's talk about one more story. I'm going to open up the phone lines right now. If you'd like to call in, if you have anything to add about these California fires, if anybody knows about this whole, the smart meter thing, the smart meter story, I'd like to hear from you. And again, we do screen calls now. So please only call in if you have something to add. No calling in being like, what are you guys talking about? None of that anymore, please. Dylan Farnham says, I wonder why there aren't more Canadian Jewish firefighters in LA. I'm sure there's some. Canadian and Jewish, probably not. Probably not. Okay, one more story. And boy, is this a story that it's close to my heart. We actually had someone call in about this, I think last week, or maybe the previous episode. Want a little update. Well, we got a little update, people, on the infamous Jewish tunnels. The Jewish tunnels, everybody. We've celebrated, I believe it's 1 year since the Jewish tunnels, roughly. And the justice system works because today, a Brooklyn judge on Monday, today, berated a rebellious crew of Hasidic Jewish students charged with digging a secret tunnel under a prominent Crown Heights synagogue, even as 4 defiantly demanded a trial. 2 of the accused students had their cases adjourned and will have the charges dismissed if they refrain from any more digging underneath the Chabad Lubavitch World Headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway and stay out of trouble for the next 6 months. Good luck. Good luck. That is like telling a bird not to fly, okay? Good luck. That is, if I was them, I would be like, just throw me in jail. Because if you're asking me not to dig ever again, that is in my nature. I'm a born digger. I'm basically a mole person, essentially. No chance that I'm not going to be digging. 0 chance. It says most of the others pleaded guilty to reduced criminal mischief charges and agreed to refrain from any destructive activity at the temple for the next 3 years while paying $200 in restitution. $200? Seems like that was a couple $100,000 in damages. They literally ruined the foundation of this giant building. But the others, Yisroel Binyamin, Yerachmiel Blumenfeld, Menachem Maidanchik, and Yaakov Rothschild. Rothschild? There was a Rothschild digging tunnels? Huh. You don't say. They refused to take the deals and are now due to stand trial and can face prison time. And bunch of Orthodox Jews who are in trouble for digging tunnels at Rikers Island? Show me that episode of Law and Order, please. The students claimed they were seeking to expand the sanctuary as Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Chabad Rebbe, called for before his death in 1994. The goal of everything was to expand 770 a year plus ago. Student Mendel Gerlitz. These guys have I was going to say they have the worst name, but I guess mine's not that much better. One of the suspects who was lectured by the judge said Monday, "We weren't successful. We were hoping to expand or at least draw attention to the cause," Gerlitsky said. The judge was saying if the rabbi wanted the Chabad expanded, he would have gotten the money, whatever. There was fundraising money, there were permits and everything. Meanwhile, the plea deals offered by prosecutors on Monday forbade the students from continuing to dig under the temple and an adjoining space reserved for women. The deals do not bar them from the building. However, if the students who took the plea deals violate the terms, they will be banned from setting foot at the synagogue for 5 years, the judge warned. Good luck. Literally, you're saying that they get to go in the building and they're not going to be digging? This is going to be Shawshank. This is going to be Shawshank Redemption all over here right now. These kids, you can't put them in the building and tell them not to dig. It's just what they do. It's literally in their nature. All right. We're going to take a couple calls here. Jeff dropped a super chat. Conspiracy alert. Chargers win because of LA fires. Think Patriots after 9/11 and Saints after Hurricane Katrina. Chargers lost, though. The Chargers got smoked. All right. All right. We're going to take some calls. Before I take a couple calls, a few quick things. So I want to thank everybody that has supported the show in some capacity, whether it's financially, liking the show, sharing the show, whatever. So I'm just going to be honest with you. The future of this show and the bathhouse is not looking great. Okay. It's not looking great, unfortunately. I'm doing my best. Sometimes your best is not enough, right? That's just life, right? So I have decided to put the future of this show in the hands of you, the viewers, and the listeners. Whatever you guys see fit is just how it's going to be. And I'm fine with that because, it's just what it is. Here's the deal. If 1 out of 5 of you signed up for the Patreon, $5 a month, I could do both shows essentially forever. But as it stands now, unfortunately, probably going to be a couple more months, I would say. 2 to 3 more months max, unfortunately. That's just what it is. It's just this show takes a ton of my time to deal with this in the bathhouse. Like a lot. I spend a lot of time on this when I probably should be making stupid AI disinformation videos that take a similar amount of time, but do a lot better. So, and look, I was looking today. This is depressing, to be honest, to even admit this. I was looking today, and the show has 8 more patrons than it did this time last year, and 13 more than it did this time 2 years ago. So it's not doing well. That's just objective. Is what it is. I know money's tight, whatever. Probably shouldn't have branded the show Low Value. Mark before the show, he says, maybe you should rebrand the show. I go, it's too late for that. It's too late for that. I can't deal with rebranding the show. I'm not going to do it. So anyways, it's in your hands. I'm putting it, it's in your hands. It's in God's hands. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. If you guys want to save the show, you can do it. If not, I've enjoyed doing the show. We'll do it for 2 or 3 more months. And I'm sure someone else will figure out this format and do it successfully. Unfortunately, that person currently is not I. But if you'd like to support the show, patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL. In hindsight, maybe a stupid name. I thought it was funny at the time. I don't know. $5 a month gets you a bonus audio episode every week. You get Discord access. You get ad-free episodes of all the episodes. And then finally, new episode of The Bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 p.m. All right. Let's take some calls. One moment, please. Here we go. Okay, got to reclaim the host. Let's see what we got here. Chad, what's up, man?
What's going on, Danny? How you doing?
Very well. How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. I mean, I was doing a little better before I heard that the show might only be going on for
Yeah,
two or three more months.
you know what? It is what it is. Unfortunately, it's like I gotta focus my time on the things that are working, and it's just between these two shows, between like booking the guests and researching and working on it and editing and all the shit. It takes up so much of my time. And unfortunately, it just is what it is. But if people want to save the show, they can save the show. If not, apparently Mark told me Sam Hyde's starting a fucking call-in show like Coast to Coast. So he'll probably do a great job with it. And he'll be much more successful than I.
Oh man, you never know. Hey, shoot, this could be like a old '80s or '90s movie with a good plot. You know, we could get this show saved at the end.
Hey, if people want to save the show, they can save the show. But it's just one of those things. Like I've given it my best. And if people like the show, then it's up to them. But there's only so much I can do on my end, and it's just not something I can't just do this for fucking. Because there's other things that I could be doing that I'm not because of this. So, anyways, we don't need to talk about that. What's up, Chad?
Man, nothing much. All right, so let me just ask you about this. I heard my man Ben Shapiro earlier today talking about the fact that Andrew Tate could possibly be the next prime minister of England. I don't know. I didn't really look into the video too much, but you know why he's saying something like that?
I mean, I think he started like the Bruv. I haven't been following the Andrew Tate stuff super closely. I think they were saying something like he started like the Bruv party or whatever. I think it's just a time.
You saying Bruv? Like
Bruv, like how they say like Bruv in England. That kind of thing. I think he started that like, but like, I think it's just a joke. I don't think he has any chance of getting elected in England. Maybe he does. I don't know. I think his past is way too sordid, but maybe not. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people look past this stuff now.
That's what I'm saying. Well, look at Trump. You know, they would say how many felonies did he just have? You know, before he got back in the office. And I know like people probably think Andrew Tate stuff is more serious, but still, I'm like, what if he does have a shot? Wouldn't that be a crazy world?
I mean, he's also I believe he was born in America, so he could theoretically run for president here. I don't know why he doesn't come back here ever.
Could he theoretically? Could you be the head of state of two different countries?
No. You definitely cannot double dip and just be the prime minister of England and the president of the United States at the same time. No, but he could theoretically.
Not at the same time.
Oh,
not at the same time. I'm just saying, like if he does prime minister first, and like, what if he like gets a lot of support and then comes back to America?
I mean, as far as the legality to it, I believe that there's. I believe it can be done. Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, I don't think you need to be born in England. I think America's like one of the few countries where they say, because like, I don't think Canada, you need to be born in Canada to be the prime minister. You just need to be a citizen. I could be wrong on that, but I know America is a country where specifically you need to be born in America, but he was born in America. He was born in Chicago. That's why he has that weird ass accent, because he moved when he was like 7 or something to the UK. So he could theoretically be both. Yeah. I think that would be not a good sign for America if Andrew Tate was the president.
I mean, it would certainly make me. I might start believing destiny a little more. People like that, talking about Trump so bad, because maybe there's something to it. If Andrew Tate was to be able to get elected now, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that would be a good one. I'm not a big believer in the America's a declining empire. I don't really subscribe to that whole thing. If Andrew Tate became the president of the United States, I would start believing that a little more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it would certainly make me have a whole bunch of questions as to what the hell is going on. I might sound like Trump, like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, that would be insane. Yeah, that would be insane if Andrew Tate. But yeah, theoretically could. I think he's just doing this for attention. I don't think he has any intentions of actually running to be the prime minister, nor do I think he would get elected. He has He's got too much shit. Like,
Yeah, he got
going on.
He got too much shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, man.
For sure. And I just wanted to say about those wildfires too out there in California. First of all, if there's anybody listening to the show, my heart goes out to you if you're living in that area because it looks crazy for real.
It's
but
crazy.
just as far as like how it happened though, like it's getting more mysterious by the day because they keep throwing new theories out there. And then I just heard what you were talking about the did you say something about the electrical?
Well, there was someone was saying there's like, if you search smart meters on Twitter or like TikTok, there's all these people who are basically saying that like if you didn't have a smart meter, which is like a smart like hydrometer attached to your house, all those places didn't burn down apparently. I don't know if this is true. This might be complete bullshit. So, but I'm just saying this is just a theory that's being bandied about. And it has something to do with like they have these lithium batteries in them, whereas like a normal meter doesn't have a battery in it. But again, how big could that battery be where it could burn down your fucking house?
Right. And so I guess, I mean, truth be told, I guess it's just about how the big fire started. Because then I presume how the initial fire started. Because then like if there's already a fire, I'm sure that's
I'll tell you what.
Aggravating factor.
Trump is fucking hoping that an illegal set that fire, the initial fire. That would be, that would just be wind behind in his sail going into his second term here. If it turns out that an illegal immigrant set a fire that burnt down L.A. The thing with the people who live in L.A. is, especially those people are so liberal where I honestly don't know if they could actually like bring it upon themselves to elect someone who's not a Democrat even after this, because they're just so brainwashed, these people. Like I honestly think a lot of them would still be like, nah, can't elect a Republican no matter what. And you're like, look what happened.
Do you feel, let me ask you, how confident do you feel, because I have this theory where I feel like the Democratic Party isn't going to last for all that much longer. For real.
I mean, it could be rebranded.
In
yeah, like it could be rebranded. I mean, again, their big guy was like going to be Gavin Newsom. This doesn't help. But you never know. There could be someone who comes up and, you know, maybe they could become a little more reasonable. Like again, if they keep seeing that you're like, yo, you're going to get just smoked in every election unless you kind of come around to certain things, they will. You know.
They're going to have to.
Yeah, they're going to have to because at the end of the day, they just want the power. So you're like, yeah, they'll just come around to that shit.
Yeah, I feel you will.
Anyways, I got to let you know.
More time.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Chad. Go follow Chad's YouTube channel, everybody.
Oh, yeah, I'll be commenting from it. All right, yeah.
Perfect. Later, man. Chad, everybody. All right, let's take another call here. Oh, we got someone talking about smart meters. Let's go. Let's see if there's any truth to this or if it's just nonsense.
Hello?
Hello. You're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
What's up, Danny? This is Drew Huntley.
Drew Huntley. How you doing, man?
What's up, doggy? By the way, shout out Chad. Love the song.
Oh, it's an earworm.
No, I'm here. I work with the PG&E meters every day.
Okay,
right? I change out the boxes.
So let's hear it.
Okay, the battery in there is not going to do any more damage than a battery in like your watch would do. It's a micro battery. It puts out low amps. It's made to just last a long time for when it doesn't get power from the transformer, it can still run and meter that to send a signal back to PG&E.
Right.
It's not going to do any more damage than anything in your house would do with a battery. Like your VCR with that little light on will do the same thing.
And it's not lithium. It's not a lithium battery.
Regardless if it's lithium or not, it's not going to make a huge difference on how big of a fire you're going to make.
Yeah.
Any battery can start a small fire.
Uh-huh.
You're going to have more issues with people having the solar batteries on their house and these solar battery backups than you are anything else. And that hasn't been a huge thing that you've seen a problem with. So there's no way that the batteries are having an effect on it. Maybe there's a new smart water meter that they're forcing houses to install in a lot of California for insurance purposes. And that might be a thing where they're actually able to remotely shut off the water to a house. But that's only if you've had that installed, and that's only a code in the last 2 years. So that's pretty new houses and new construction.
Yeah, they were specifically referencing the hydrometers, like the PG&E ones. Well, and you install these things. There's so many people, like if you go on Twitter, they're like, I'll never allow them to install one of these at my house, like basically. And people are like, I'm getting mine removed and all this stuff. Cause people, if you're a conspiracy prone person, you just see this, you go, I like the sounds of this whole thing. And
well, I don't know if it's the same as when they originally did the old smart meters, but there is a way to opt out of it. It takes a lot of paperwork, and you do kind of have to sound crazy. Like you do have to pretty much say you're a conspiracy theorist to a court, but they do allow you to go and stay with the old meter if you did it originally. But if you have it already, they're not going to let you go back to an old style manual.
Right. Yeah. I mean, which makes sense. I'm sure they prefer to have those, but so then there you go. Drew has debunked this, but it is going around. It is like literally, there's so many people who are like, yeah, it's crazy. Look into it. There's nobody who doesn't have a smart meter had their house burned down, which again, I don't even know if that's true. I don't even know how you'd verify that with how many houses
I would highly doubt that.
Plus? Yeah. I would doubt that too. I mean, like when I read it, I was like, this seems like bullshit. Because again, I told a story before, but like I took, one time I tried to replace my iPhone battery, and an iPhone battery was like, size of like a Monopoly dollar, kind of around that size. And if you
did that, then you know that the lithium flame is really quick. It extinguishes itself almost immediately. It's only an oxygen flame.
Yeah. What happened is it lit the phone on. It was in the phone, and I was trying to pry it out, and I poked the battery. So it lit on fire, but then it lit the whole phone on fire. So the phone caught fire. It was in my apartment, and the phone was on fire. And then I just took the whole thing.
Ooh, you almost made a bomb.
I know. And then I just threw it in a pot, and I put a fucking lid on the pot, and then I put it outside, and that was that. And that was the end of that phone.
Oh yeah, add water to the lithium. That'll help.
Do not add water to the lithium. Do not
add water to it. It's reacting because of the oxygen.
Yeah. Don't do that. All right, Drew. Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it. Drew, everybody. All right, let's take... Okay, 1 moment, please. What time is it? All right, we got some time here. Anton Super Chat says, gay. Nice. Hello, Jared. You there?
How you doing, Danny?
How you doing, buddy?
Happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
Always a pleasure chatting, brother. First time I came on was to discuss Mezitza Bapa and the penis Jew sucking ritual.
Sure.
Circumcision.
Yeah. So did you see the stuff with the tunnels today?
I didn't hear the update, but any official update in my book, never quite above board. Sure. I can get into some things in that regard. I do have some material prepared to discuss.
Okay, let's hear it.
Both regarding the California fires and a history of ritual Jew murder.
Okay.
So there is an idea called blood libel, which you may or may not be familiar with, sir.
Yeah.
For those
everybody who doesn't subscribe to the Patreon on this show is doing a blood libel.
Okay, so
I'm well aware.
You're well aware. One of the instances of blood libel was in 1115 in Magdeburg, Germany. 5 children were murdered, and the people responsible were eventually tried, brought to justice, and dealt with accordingly.
Okay.
And this is one of many instances in history. So from what we understand,
one of many instances of blood libels
in history. Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into all the dates.
Okay.
And
you don't, I'll tell you this, you only have 5 minutes, so you might have to give a condensed version.
Sure thing. Condensed version, sure will. These instances occur around Jewish festivals, such as Purim and Passover, and they've been recorded throughout history. This goes back to the times of Babylon. In 1415, Socrates, Scholasticus reported that Jews had bound a Gentile child on a cross and poked him until he died. In 425, Baroness reported that Jews had crucified a child.
Did you say 425?
Oh, yeah. In 614, monk Antiochus reported that when Jerusalem fell to the Persians, Jews purchased a Gentile child and slew him like a sheep. I mentioned in 1115. Slew him like a sheep.
Slew him. The
Correct.
Plural.
In 1243, Bavaria Jews were convicted after confessing a Gentile blood rite and for Passover. In 1255, London, 18 prominent Jews were tried after all convicted of ritualistically murdering a Gentile child. One renounced his faith to tell the truth about the incident. 1290, Oxford, England, Jews murdered another child, arrested. 1331, 1335, England. 1420, Venice. 1462, Austria. 1475, Italy. 1492, Spain. And then from there, Spain's abolished the Jews. Queen Isabella banished the Jews. 1502, Prague. 1534, Lithuania. 1590, Poland, Belarus. 1753, 1791, Hungary. 1797, Romania. 1825, Beirut. Goes on.
Yeah.
So this.
And what is it? How does this tie into the LA fires?
Well, what I was going to say, this tied into the Jew tunnels.
Oh, okay.
So that was that, and then I'm going to jump into the other. It's a two-part.
Oh, okay.
So that's the Jew tunnels. That's what they're doing in the Jew tunnels. That's why they have these. They're raping babies and they're killing people down there. Okay. So now we're going on to.
And just to be clear, so they're doing all this stuff, and you just think like the same court system that has no problem.
Oh, it's run by Jews. It's run by Jews.
But they put
Weinstein.
It's all Jews. But they put Weinstein.
The police that showed up were Jews. They'll throw one of theirs under the bus every now and then, sure, for optics.
You're just saying. So you're saying that they did Harvey Weinstein. They go, we're going to put Harvey Weinstein in jail just so we can cover.
He was no longer. He wasn't earning anymore.
Earning how? He was the biggest movie producer in the world. These Jews
in
don't have
owed him money. They owed him money.
I mean, these Jews.
They owed him.
You're saying that these
Jews owed him money. They owed him money.
Who owed him money?
So if he was alive, it's like Michael Jackson being alive, better off dead. Jimi Hendrix being alive, better off dead. Just kill them. They own the catalog.
Yeah.
He's fucking. Why pay him? Okay, so let's move on to PG&E.
But hold on. But what money did the Orthodox Jews in the tunnels have? These guys are all like broke.
It's not about money. It's about their system of rape, murder, and harvesting children. They're involved in the child trafficking syndicate. Okay. That's literally what they do.
Okay.
That's why it's like like one of the largest countries of like sex trafficking is Ukraine, right? What's Ukraine? It's Jews. It's Khazaria.
Yeah.
So. Well, we can get into that.
There's some Jews there. It's not a lot, but there are some for sure.
Yeah. But okay, so PG&E. There was a gal by the name of.
You have like 1 minute, 2 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes.
I know. Janice Quinones was hired on at PG&E as senior vice president of gas and engineering.
Okay.
Her background is overseeing the functions and near-term priorities and long-term strategy planning for what goes on out in the field. She has a background of 20 years, president of this, that, and the other. She worked in the Coast Guard. She also has an expertise in maintaining vegetation and allocation of water, okay?
Yeah.
So she was in place and responsible for basically what transpired in Northern California in Paradise, where all those people died and they just burned down those trailer parks where the low-income people were living, and they're just going to build it back with $1 million shit. So, and all of a sudden, she's brought in to L.A., and they don't have fucking water at the most important time when some winds are coming in. And guess what? In 2014, $7.4 billion was passed in California and raised to build reservoirs, not a single one was built since 2014. Not one.
Apparently, they got all this money for all these like helicopters and planes and stuff, and they never bought one of them either.
Exactly. What they do with the money? So this chick. So it seems like just like in Vegas, the guy who oversaw the Las Vegas shooting was also involved in Hawaii, Lahaina.
Yeah.
He's like a crisis management dude. Same shit. They brought this.
Yeah,
chick
we talked
in.
about him last week.
Same exact shit. They bring this Janice Quinones bitch in to oversee the disaster because she's fucking one of them. She'll watch the world burn and laugh with them while she fucking collects her little check and gets her house on the hill. It's fucking classic Jew shit.
So you're saying she's Jewish?
Burn it to the ground.
Well, that doesn't seem like a very Jewish name, Quinones.
The name doesn't matter. People, what do Jews do? They change their fucking name.
Generally
right?
not legally.
Okay.
Just for
let me ask you something. I know your
business.
last name's Polish Chuck or Polish Cuck. You could say whatever you want.
Yeah,
pronounce it whichever way you wish.
that's not my
No
original last
disrespect.
name. I changed it to that.
Exactly. It's not your last name, and that's what Jews do. They change their name. They hide. They fucking try and infiltrate other countries. They move around like little fucking rats.
Jared,
not all of them.
You think I had Jared? You think I had a different last name and I changed it to Polish Chuck?
Because it sounded too Jewish, and you went with the less Jew name, even though it's just as Jew.
All right. Okay. I got to go, Jared. This has been highly entertaining. But I do have to go. We got to get to the guest. He's waiting. One last thought,
I just want to thank you.
Yes.
I just want to thank you for this opportunity to speak. You give me the platform, and it's important that we have people as confrontational or controversial as I may be. It's because I love you, Danny.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, Jared. Jared, everybody. Fun at parties, Jared. All right. We got to go to a break here. We're going to bring Illegitimate Scholar. I'm sorry if you're on the line, we didn't get to you, but if we get 10 more Super Chats, which it seems like we probably will, we'll do an extra half-hour show, and we can hear all about it. I'm just going to read a few Super Chats before we go to the break. Dave says, Danny, we love you. We can get Kevin Brennan on Bathhouse and boost your numbers. Let's make it happen. Just ditch Ray DeVito and let KB... KB can always come do the Bathhouse. I don't know if he's allowed in the stand. Probably isn't, unfortunately, knowing him. Poison says, rebrand yourself as the first gay Jewish AI. I kind of have already, though. Baron NECA says, this is $2 Midwest, so that's like $10 in coastal and 50 cents in Canada. I added that part. Anton, there are some crazy bastards out there. And yes, if I stop doing the show, goddamn, I'm going to miss them. Drew Huntley says, also, most PG&E workers in LA subsidized to Edison Electric and not done by PG&E. And shout out Mocha, Robbie Goodwin's grandma's dog. Shout out Mocha. And Anton says, got him. All right. We are going to hit the break. Not the break. I guess kind of that's a double entendre break. And we'll be back very shortly with our guest, Illegitimate Scholar. Sit tight, everybody. And in the meantime, enjoy a clip from last week's episode of The Bathhouse. Have you ever had two women fight over you? I have not. But have you? See you soon. Oh, this didn't work. Guys, why doesn't anything ever work? He wants me to rebrand this as not low value. There's nothing less low value about this show.
You ever have two bitches? This is a question for Derek. You have two bitches fight over you, cuz, in your brother's driveway?
In my brother's driveway?
That's so specific.
Not like not like that.
You ever have two bitches fight over you?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I got two bitches fighting over me right now. Karen and Dan.
Bitch fighting.
She can have you.
Yeah, no, I had a girl, two girls one time fist fight over me. Yes.
Wow, that's hot.
It happened.
Were they good looking?
These were not good looking bitches at all. They were fucking nasty.
That was his mom's friends.
It was basically
Most of them is nasty.
Yeah, I mean that was like a heroin thing. That was like when I was getting high. You know, you get high with like different people, whoever can get you by for the day.
Yeah, I was laughing my ass off listening to that.
The other,
that was
caught
something.
Me with the other one.
How'd you get caught?
I'm listening. I'm like, isn't Danny Jewish?
Yeah.
What is he?
Yeah, I'm your guy then.
So Lil Dan, it sounds like you had something like this happen to you recently?
Like you changed your name to Polish Chuck.
Fist fighting in my brother's driveway.
Little Dan.
I'm a big fan of Lil Dan.
I love Lil Dan.
Lil Dan, I'll tell you this. If my brother had a driveway, it would have happened there. but we didn't have a driveway.
Yeah,
This
not a lot of
hap-
driveways
This
in New
happened in the street on the sidewalk.
So so let's get the backstory here, Lil Dan. How do you know these two upstanding ladies?
Ladies.
Well, these two ladies. One was my ex, and the other one was a girl I was fucking. And they found out.
Yeah, no worries.
And they found out each other, and you know what I'm saying?
I mean, by far the best scenario if you get caught, like whatever in that scenario, because like some people, you ever heard a story of someone? They're like, yeah, my like girl caught me cheating, and then I came home and they were both
Samuel
just waiting
Hill
for
Scholar.
me. Kind of, I think Dion Cole told that
I
story.
got my ass beat by my ex.
Mostly people call me Hill Scholar now.
You didn't hit her back?
My name is also fine.
No, not that.
So if you go back,
Good man.
Usually go
It's
by
hard
Dan.
not to sometimes when they get crazy.
I mean, sometimes they're asking for it.
Yeah.
Hey, I choked a bitch before, but I ain't never put my hands on.
Yeah, I'm not in my normal
Horrific.
studio.
Oh my God.
This is Trump's America.
This is Trump's
We're
America.
laughing
I know.
at this.
I know. This is
USA.
literally, if Kamala won,
Beat women.
we just have women calling and being
Well,
like,
Karen, you think if a woman is just assaulting a man, she should?
I'm
Are
usually
women
in
equal or are
a
women not equal?
studio
That's the
in
question.
I think that a
Pennsylvania, but
man
I'm in
should be able
Washington right
to
now.
restrain her, perhaps like a hog tie.
And
type.
that's what
she
Lil
beat my
Dan
ass
did.
that day. I ain't gonna lie, I never.
Lil Dan, are you actually little? Or are you like a big guy with a little name?
I'm 5'5".
Just,
Okay, so he is
See,
little.
bro, I'm 5'2", and if a girl is like bigger than me,
yeah,
I
what are you
should be
supposed to
allowed.
do? Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
You know what I mean?
Hey,
what are you
I'm
doing?
big, I'm
Family
a
way.
big bitch. I was thick
I'm like
bitch.
140 pounds.
She got
Yeah,
100
it's
pounds
like-
on me.
Yeah, it's if someone's coming at you and they're more than 140 pounds, you're like,
I'm just like, you're getting in these romantic entanglements with these women that can kill you. I don't know why you would do that to yourself, little Dan. You have to take some responsibility here.
by the way, shout out to Little Dan, the Short King.
Short King, bro.
Dude, people are fucking constantly. They're like, like people call into the show and they're like, I'm short, I can't get any girls or whatever. You're like, this guy's got two chicks fighting over him.
Well, listen, Little Dan has got Karen going off his voice again. Like I feel like you probably pull a lot of girls, right?
Hey, I'll do okay.
Yeah, bro. Come on, you're a Short King, dude. I'm a little offended you didn't ask me if I had women fight over me.
Have you?
No, but still.
Hey, bro, I ain't gonna lie. I don't know you. I know Derek.
I am also a Short King. I'm
On the gate.
I'm a tall Short King, 5'7" 3/4.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not Short King, bro.
No.
I'm sorry.
What?
That's just
Where does it
Don't
end?
have the
It's
3/4 in
5'5"
there, guy.
at the most.
Well, I'll let the woman decide.
What do you think? What is a Short King
Stop
do?
hitting me.
Never that. You dated Lewis. What
Go
you
ahead,
mean?
little Dan. Sorry.
You dated Lewis. What you mean?
Yeah, that was like dating the first man.
A Neanderthal, right?
The Cro-Magnon man.
It was such an experiment. I'm like, will I survive this?
But what do you dictate? What height is a Short King officially?
Honestly, 5'5" is probably fine for me. I'm 5'1" 3/4. I'm very short. So like, I like the short thing doesn't bother me.
5'6" with the Timbs on.
Yeah, let's go,
There you
little
go.
Dan.
I bet you have a collection of Timbs. Sounds
Little
like.
Daniel.
What do you, Little Dan? What do you do? What do you do in your life?
He makes some patties wet. That's what he fucking does. He fucks two bitches. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm a plumber and I sell flowers.
Oh my God.
I love
Come
this
on.
guy.
I love Lil Dan,
That's
bro.
an American right there.
Yeah.
They don't get no more American.
He's an
I say,
entrepreneur.
Go for America.
Nice man. You sell flowers. I imagine that's code for something.
But
All right, I think we solved your problem.
one time,
Bye, Lil Dan.
one time, my brother had two fat bitches fighting over him. I mean, it just,
And how does it work? Do you prefer the loser or the winner in that scenario?
well, my brother was fat
Because
too.
obviously the real
so it was
Jesus
just,
Christ.
That's
this is
normal
disgusting.
thing.
I mean, it was just like three walruses, like on fucking,
yeah.
Like when they're like
Yeah.
bumping up.
like on like the History Channel and
Yeah,
shit,
yeah,
or
like
the
David-
National
David
Geographic. They're just like
Attenborough.
whoa, skin
Well,
flapping all
yeah,
over the place.
The design of the walrus is such a bizarre one.
It's crazy.
They're like, let's make this thing that's hard to roll over, but it can swim. But
Yeah.
then it just like can't move around really at all on land.
But they're pretty agile underwater. I think is when you get them on land.
So
they
my
got nothing
brother,
going on.
God rest his soul, we're all at a club, right? And he's like, yo, he comes over, he's like, yo, I got like 3 bitches coming over later. And we're like, oh shit, yeah. And bro, they come.
All right, everybody, we are back. Hope you enjoyed that quick little break. Hope you enjoyed the bathhouse. Joining me right now, we have Samuel Urban. What's up, man?
How you doing?
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Illegitimate scholar on YouTube everywhere. Do you have a Rumble channel? We got a lot of people watching on Rumble right now.
I do have Rumble. Yeah, I mostly use YouTube, but I have Rumble. And I'm the biggest on Twitter. Honestly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just a little backup in case things go sideways on Rumble, like the rest of us.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not too controversial myself, but YouTube can be finicky.
Definitely can. So before we get started, I guess just tell people a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So I went to school to be a history teacher and got my degree in history as well as anthropology and education. Got certified to teach history, social studies. And I didn't want to do that. There's too many restrictions on what you can talk about. So I just decided to bail out of it and just do my own thing. And now I write and I do interviews and podcasts, mostly about cultural anthropology, but with other stuff attached to that, history, archaeology, mostly.
Sure. And so as far as anthropology, because you said specifically right there, cultural anthropology, is that the only thing in anthropology that's controversial?
Not necessarily. So there's 4 subfields in anthropology, and that's just in North America. They organize the field differently in Europe, but it's archaeology, which is the big one that most people know about. That's like digging up stuff. Anthropology being broadly the study of humans. And then there's also cultural anthropology, which is the study of cultures. And then there's physical anthropology, which is like it ties into biology and genetics, and then linguistic anthropology, which is languages and how they develop. But there's usually mostly in cultural anthropology and in physical anthropology as well, because you have to talk about genetic differences between humans of different races and different sexes. That's like a big part of the field. So that can be pretty controversial, but it's still used in courtrooms today. Forensic anthropology is part of physical or biological anthropology.
And how's it used in courtrooms? Like in what way?
Well, it's so if you have a body, it can be identified sometimes by the race, and they can identify a body, bone structure based on certain traits that they have. And I don't know too much about that, but I do know that they can do that because there are differences between different types of humans.
Sure. And so has anthropology, like most disciplines in like higher education, just kind of been taken over by leftists for the most part?
It's different because it's more. It's like
it's worse in anthropology.
It's one of the absolute worst. Yeah. So there hasn't been a comprehensive study of like all colleges in the United States or Canada and North America, but there is one that's often posted. I think it's from Brooklyn College or something, where it was like 267, something like that to 1. Anthropology is over 95% liberal leftist, really. I mean, it's completely taken over. If you look at like anthropology news sites, any of them, there's going to be some crazy stuff on there. Whereas it used to be like the other direction bad, where it was like really tied in with colonialism in like the 19th century. And they did a lot of not great stuff back then. But now, yeah, it's extraordinarily left wing. So there's not really room for conservatives or anything close to it in that field. But that gives me an in to do it because I love the field, but I'm not going to do it that way.
And how do they reconcile the fact that, like, just like you said, where, because obviously people like leftists would be like, there's no difference between races. There's no, like with the whole trans thing, they're like, there's no difference between a man and a woman. And you go, okay, well, you can literally find a body and tell what race it was and what gender it is. How do they reconcile that?
It's not that you can always tell what race it was, but there are differences. It really depends. Like, there are certain markers, but they really they don't talk about those aspects of it. They concentrate on different things, and from what I see, and they concentrate on specific facts. Like, if you have for physical anthropology, you're doing forensic anthropology. Sometimes I've seen this posted before where people are like, look, they found these skeletons. They couldn't tell what sex they were. It's harder to tell what sex a skeleton is if you don't have a full skeleton, or if it's a mixed race group. If you can control for the race of what the skeleton is, then you can know, as long as you have a full skull with a mandible, as in the jaw.
Right.
So there are certain markers, as well as a pelvis is very important for sexing a human skeleton.
Right.
But they'll concentrate on the other details, and they won't talk about those things.
Interesting. So this is actually a question from Mark, the producer, but he asks, do you know who about the Kennewick Man?
I do. Yeah.
Can you tell us
Kennewick
what
Man
that
is
is?
a very famous case. So Kennewick Man was a skeleton that was found in Washington State that they originally thought had markers of being related to Europeans. And it turned out, by the time, I think in around 2016, somewhere 2012 to 2016, they were finally able to get it was a more advanced genetic test that they were able to do on the skeleton. And they had been fighting over it for a while because there were certain markers. And this is why I said before that it's not always perfect. They thought that it was a European skeleton, but it ended up being, yes, it was a Native American skeleton, as far as we know. And that was after this new test that they had to test it. And there were actually people living in the area, Native Americans, that were direct descendants of the Kennewick Man, which I think is about 8,000 years old. And that ties into NAGPRA, which is the Native American Graves Repatriation Act, which there's a bunch of stuff on that.
We actually had a viewer of the show, Goob. The Goob, shout out, he's watching right now.
Yeah, I know him.
Oh, you know him? Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was, we used to do this. I used to do this after show, and he was telling me all about that. How they just passed all these laws around this, where they're basically having to like remove everything from museums and whatnot.
Yes. So I'll give you the spark notes, and this is something that I kind of brought to the forefront. There's one mainstream anthropologist. Her name is Elizabeth Weiss, who has gone on about this a little bit. And this is actually something that I do agree with the mainstream anthropologists on, but they haven't been very loud about it. The SAA, the Society for American Anthropologists, which is an organization that I'm directly at odds with, and some of its members quite often, but they're on my side on this. But they're not being very loud about it because it's viewed as really right-wing to do this. But NAGPRA, the Native American Graves and Repatriation Act, was a good law in the 1990s, because you go back like 100 years, there are all these people grave robbing Native Americans, taking their skeletons. Famously, there's a story, which may or may not be true, about George W. Bush's grandfather stealing the skull of Geronimo, who was a famous 19th century war hero, or warrior.
Sure.
And so this law was put into place to repatriate the remains of all of these Native Americans. But what happened at the end of 2013 into 2024 is they expanded NAGPRA with an administrative change, which changed its application from remains and direct grave goods found in the context of human remains of Native Americans. And they changed it to be all cultural materials of Native Americans. So anything from a Native American, a blanket, shell necklace, jewelry, weapons, anything from a Native American, whether it's pre-1500 or not, any of it is all Native Americans. The direct tribal representative gets to decide what is done with that. It has to be displayed in the way that they want to. It has to be approved to be displayed in the way that they request it to be displayed. They have no time frame for deciding that. And what this has effectively meant is that all of these natural history museums have to shut down any display of any Native American artifacts.
Can people own these things as a private citizen?
So that's a little unclear to me, but I think right now this only applies to federal and state organizations. So, but most museums, right, are going to be owned by the government.
Right.
So it applies to all of those. But I don't think, while you wouldn't be allowed to own skeletons, I think it's yet to be seen how it's through the legislative or the judicial branch, like what they say in courts, how it applies to private ownership of cultural items of Native Americans.
And so is this the kind of thing where like anthropologists, they didn't want to say anything and then they realized like, oh, this is actually, they're coming for our livelihoods here. And so now they're like a little more amenable to just like kind of saying something.
Well, it's still mostly being ignored as far as I know, and I could be wrong on this, but the only thing I've ever seen from the SAA which is the Society of American Anthropologists. It's the big organization. I've only seen them say one thing about it. And I think part of that is that in the past, there were, like with Kennewick Man, when Kennewick Man was finally decided, when they did that study to prove that it was Native American, the archaeologists and geneticists and all these different experts, as well as the Native American representatives, they get together and they talk about it. And then it gets decided through, I don't know who would make the decision, but after the administrative changes of NAGPRA, every other decision, the words of the geneticists, the archaeologists, they're all subordinate to the Native American representative. So they can say whatever they want. They can decide that you have to display it in like a KISS tribute band type thing. Like they're not going to say that, but they could say that because they're the sole decider. The only time anyone else ever gets a say is if the Native American defers to them.
And so what's like the downside to this whole thing? Because I assume that, if you're like Native American, you still want your history displayed. I can't imagine they're like, we just want to not have any of it. Is it a financial thing?
So the big problem that I see with this is that it's not like you just find a random Native American. It's that it's decided by the Native American representative that is in the position of authority from their own tribal or nation government. And these organizations are different. There's dozens of different tribes and nations in the country, but the people that are generally in those positions, they don't necessarily share the average opinion of the average Native American. These are people who are only representatives of Native American, federally recognized Native American tribes. And so there's another layer to this where it's like the executive branch, one of the Department of the Interior, and under the Department of the Interior, there's a Secretary of the Interior. Under that, there's the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And they're the ones, and these are all unelected positions, by the way, in the executive branch. They're appointed positions. There's a direct line from them down through the executive branch, the Secretary of the Interior, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, down to the Native American representatives in the native governments. And those are the people that get to decide it. And with my experience with some of these people, they're generally like the most, wacky type people that you'd meet. For example, I met one of these in a local tribe of mine who talked to us about how it was like the name Redskins is offensive, right? Like on the sports team. And I get that. But she showed us pictures of her with one of her nephews who actually had a Redskins hat on, and he viewed it with reverence, and he was a Native American and he liked it. But she went so far as to say that they shouldn't be allowed to name teams after animals because animals are sacred to some people. So like she was the type of person who literally told us in an anthropology class that all sports teams should just be named by colors. That was the end of that.
Are there enough colors?
I don't know. I guess you'd have
32
to do
NFL teams.
Maroon.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
But so they get like pretty out there with this stuff.
Yeah, these are the types of people who they may or may not represent the general views of the average Native American.
Right.
That's
similar. Go ahead.
I've talked to plenty of Native Americans who absolutely do want their stuff displayed, and I agree with that, and I agree it should be done carefully, and that's why I agree with NAGPRA's original guidelines, which is being respectful of human remains. But this is a massive overreach by unelected officials.
And would there be some element where there'd be, I guess maybe if they're in charge of it, where they go, we're only gonna like nothing that's negative in any way, like that puts us in any negative light, we won't display that. Like, and so they're curating it where it's maybe not giving you kind of like full historical context.
Well, it could be down to it being displayed like, there's spiritual beliefs in a lot of these indigenous belief systems. And it can be curated down however they want, to the point where they're presenting those spiritual beliefs as fact to like 7-year-olds, saying that like this is a magic object, which like, you know, I do cultural anthropology, so I'm into that stuff, but it should be, you know, there should be maybe an explanation about what that means rather than it being down to one person deciding exactly how it's going to be shown, and maybe not in a museum presenting it as a fact of indigenous beliefs, where if you follow it down to a T, you're going to end up like certain tribes like the Hopi and the Lakota. They believe that they come from the stars, like extraterrestrial aliens. And if everyone follows that to a T, you're going to end up with Bigfoot comes from a Native American thing, Sasquatch in it's like they're from somewhere in the Western Midwest and the Pacific Northwest, and it can get it's not scientific.
Right. It's just not scientific. Yeah, because there's like I'm from Canada originally, and they have a lot of stuff going on there where they put like the two-spirit thing at the front of LGBT or whatever,
right.
And then and then they also had to change the name because of George Floyd. They had to change the name of the CFL team, the Edmonton Eskimos, to the Edmonton Elks. Like specifically,
they couldn't have just made it Inuit.
No, but the thing is, people in Canada, like they went and talked to people, and like literally nobody had any issue with Eskimos. They're like, it's not like a derogatory thing. It's not like a slur. And then they were just kind of like, we're just changing it. Like 2 people got mad about it. So
they do that with a lot of stuff. Like I was just writing about Land of Lakes today. They took, the Land of Lakes box. That used to have this woman who was named Mia on the box, and she was called a sexual stereotype. She was called all of these like terrible things, but that was never true. She was a representative of the specific Ojibwe people from Minnesota, wearing Ojibwe clothes. She was on the land that they have was traditional Ojibwe land, and it was all done by an Ojibwe artist. And they removed Mia off the box. So they literally removed the Indian and kept the land on the Land of Lakes box.
Right. Who owns that company?
So it's a farmer corporation owned type deal. So they just rebranded towards prioritizing their farming thing.
Right, but they're not indigenous or
they're
Indians.
Not native, no.
Yeah, so they're probably just like, we don't need this shit. We'll just here you go. Here's our token sacrifice. So obviously because I was watching a few of your videos and I was going through your Twitter and stuff. There are some controversial anthropological theories, obviously. What are kind of the most controversial ones? Are they the ones that are all just kind of related to racial things? Like, is that the main stuff that if you were to say like take a college course, they would just avoid?
Yeah, it's difficult because I don't deal with the most controversial stuff because that's going to get into like race science, and that's most of what I don't do. But because I do,
we just lost half our viewers. Okay.
But with cultural anthropology, it ends up being a lot of stuff. A lot of these, there are a lot of practices in, primitive is kind of a dirty word, but like traditional cultures, like hunter-gatherer cultures, when you have a civilization, a culture that doesn't have the same kinds of things that we have in the West or the East, these large social institutions, they don't have police departments, right? Yeah. There's no monopoly on violence. So these places end up being a lot more violent in general. And this isn't something that they like to talk about. I'm still here. But when you have like these early cultures, there are practices like ritualistic cannibalism, which is very common on pretty much every continent. Up until fairly recently, depending on the location. Those things are they don't want to discuss that type of stuff anymore. It's like,
why? Just because it makes them seem like savages, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and it's like, it's icky to them, I guess.
Isn't that unscientific for something that's trying to be like a fairly hard science, though?
I would say so, but they don't. Like cultural anthropology at this point, they don't do what they used to do, which is like, in the early days of anthropology, this is like the 19th century in Canada and the United States, they're going to tribes that are still living in traditional methods, or they're going to Papua New Guinea, which is like an anthropologist's paradise because it's so diverse in culture and language and everything. But they don't really do that anymore. There are less of those people available. They're farther away, and everything in cultural anthropology, like if it, they'll have feminist anthropology now, queer anthropology. I'm not exaggerating. This is the types of things that cultural anthropology produces now. It'll be all derivative based stuff, analyzing cultures rather than actually doing ethnographic participant observation work where you're actually studying the culture and annotating what they do, what their practices are, subsistence strategy, rituals, how they determine status, whether they're patrilineal or matrilineal, how they determine leadership, like what context it's in, how they deal with theft, what their ideas on ownership are. These are all like traditional things that they just don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And they don't like to talk about it as much.
Now, is this like kind of, in your opinion, them trying to rewrite history a little bit? Because you shared on Twitter, you shared an article, which is obviously the most ridiculous article. It says the theory that men evolved to hunt and women evolved to gather is wrong, which we obviously all know is not true, right? I guess the question is, why are they doing this? Is that just because if you live in like this super like leftist liberal framework, that's kind of like the conclusion you have to arrive at? Is that just everything's opposites?
If I were going to guess in that case, I would say that those two anthropologists that wrote that paper, they wanted something that would be popular, and it was popular. It was published in a lot of places. And I looked through the body of work of those two anthropologists, and one of them was doing very, very solid stuff on Neanderthal populations. Like these are the humans who were in parts of Asia and Europe. They're still human, but they were different. I'm sure people have heard of Neanderthals. They weren't like stupid. They were shorter. Their skeletons were more robust. They had different social structures than Homo sapiens, which is what we are. But it was very, very popular for them to write this. And there wasn't a lot of scrutiny into the details of it. I mean, I looked into the details of it and it was complete BS. They actually argued using studies of Neanderthal populations to make conclusions about Homo sapiens, which doesn't make any sense. We're not Neanderthals, we're Homo sapiens. And it was true for Neanderthals. And they did this based on there will be certain wear patterns on a bone from certain actions. So famously, English longbowmen, there was a archaeological find from a ship, and they found these skeletons with these longbowmen as well as a bunch of longbows, and they found that their skeletons were worn a certain way based on the way that the muscles interacted with the bone and grew the bone over time. And they could tell that those Neanderthal women were hunting larger game because of the wear patterns that are consistent with basically stabbing with a spear. And I believe that. It's just not evidence for Homo sapiens. They also looked at some old studies of different cultures, of different hunter-gatherer groups and how they hunted. And they drew conclusions about evolving to hunt based on the presence of hunting, but they didn't draw a distinction between how often that hunting was, which was less often by the women, as well as it mostly being trapping and small and medium-sized game rather than large game.
Yeah.
But it was very popular for them to do that. And their other work on Neanderthals, which was great work, was just not very popular. It had very few citations, whereas this thing was published all over the place. The New York Times, the Smithsonian, everybody talked about it. And there's a clear incentive for them to be posting something that's going to be popular in the public eye versus to just continue to do solid scientific work on Neanderthals.
Which is what? Just grants? Is it just that's the game? It's just more grants?
I'm actually not sure. I'm not sure. I assume that it has something to do with it. There's a level of status associated with being able to say that you had an article in this place that was high profile. And I assume that's part of it, but I'm not too involved in the mainstream academia.
Have you ever considered doing like one of those James Lindsay type pranks that he did, where like you make these like fake papers under a pseudonym? That just like makes
did
the whole...
James Lindsay do that?
Yeah, it was
I've heard
James,
of
that's how James Lindsay got popular. It was him, Helen Pluckrose, and the other guy. He has a long name, I can't remember. But that's how he made it. That's how we all know him originally. Is he did those like fake papers of dog rape at the dog park and stuff.
I remember that.
Like
I remember that, but I didn't know that was James Lindsay.
I believe that was James. Yeah, I'm almost. He's gone. So
I believe you.
Yeah. He's gone into a whole new dimension, basically. That's like
everybody on my Twitter feed has been just dunking on him for days. He
yeah,
has me
yeah,
blocked.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. But that's where his origin story was doing these fake papers.
I probably should do that.
Yeah,
that would be a funny idea. But no, I haven't considered it. But that would be a perfect thing for me to do.
Yeah, you should. All right, I'm going to open the phone lines. If anybody has any questions for you, 1-888-949-2969, extension 1 or 2. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I want to ask you something about this before the calls come in. So you had an interesting thing about why the Crusades were justified. This interests me specifically. I'm sure it'll interest a lot of people. So I guess tell me more about that. Because obviously we all think the Crusades are bad.
Right. So when I say justified, I don't mean that I think they were like a good thing, right? Like going in and killing a bunch of people. But the point is that, and this ties right into before, there's an extreme concentration on the bad that the Crusades did, but there's not a concentration on the context of why the Crusades happened. And when you look at the hundreds of years leading up to the Crusades, you have expansion of Islam starting in the 7th century. I mean, Muhammad himself, the founder of the religion, conquered cities, and then his descendants, both real and spiritual, depending on what type of Islam you ask, they were conquering cities. They were expanding into Christian lands, and then you have and they were slaughtering certain people at certain times, as well as enslaving people. And then you have a response where the Christians, they have a war themselves and they fight back, but it's, it is fighting back. It was a defensive thing, which of course was offensive, sort of. But if you look at it from a longer time scale, it was all part of one much longer conflict. And that's very similar to a lot of things that we see, is that the action that will be concentrated on is the one that makes the people that you want to look bad, and the people that you want to look good. And they don't want to make Muslims look bad. So it's ignored the bad that Muslim people did. And then what's concentrated on is the bad things that Christians did.
Sure. And is that a more recent thing, that the Crusades were wholesale a bad thing? Like, is that a more recent, like if you go back 100 years, were they saying the same thing then?
I think it would really, at a certain point, it depends on who your social studies teacher was. But I got my social studies certification from the same education college that the current federal secretary of education went to. So my experience is like, and I'm not saying this to brag, I'm not like proud of it. No, not Linda McMahon. Biden's one. It's a Hispanic guy.
Okay.
But he's like, it's very, very far left in a lot of ways. But this is like the top of education. Like my experience in there was ridiculous. And that's what is being taught now from the top down, from the top of the hierarchy of education. And while you might, I definitely learned from some younger history teachers who, the idea that I got was that, they taught them as a bad thing. I never learned anything about the Muslim expansions until I did my own research. But that's the way it was taught to me. It really depends on your state curriculum, your provincial curriculum, as well as the specific teacher that teaches it.
Right. Because how much do teachers, like, how much leeway do they even have in teaching topics? Like, don't they mostly just they go, this is the course and this is what you're teaching? Because
in the U.S. and Canada, our curriculums they're so different by different states and different provinces, and even locally, and even by different classes. Certain classes have more of a strict curriculum than others. Like a civics class in my home state of Connecticut would be very strict, whereas in an AP class is going to be very strict, but then like, a freshman or sophomore level, probably not as strict. It just depends on so many factors.
Yeah.
But the people, the general field itself is now and is becoming more so overwhelmingly leftist.
Right. Which is essentially rewriting it to a degree. Like
well, it's always, my opinion is that it's always rewritten. Even if you're just selecting, there's no such thing as true history.
Right.
Through selection of what you're talking about and how you talk about it, it always has bias in it, no matter what.
Yeah, and you only have so much time to teach. You have a few months to teach this topic or whatever. So or even less, right? So you got to kind of pick and choose. It's funny.
History
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say with the civics thing, it's like when I was in high school, they didn't even teach civics at all. They didn't even have that class until a year after I left. I remember people were like, "We take civics." I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's a requirement in my state, but I don't know if it is in all the others. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was going to say.
Let's take a call here. We got the Goob actually coming up, so let's get him on here. And phone lines are open 1-888-949-2969. Goob, what's up, man?
What's up, Danny? And
good
finally speak to you, Sam.
Yeah, what's up, man? How you doing?
There we go.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Goob.
So I wanted to add a little bit to the NAGPRA conversation from earlier. So the Kennewick man actually wasn't returned under NAGPRA. Obama did it under an executive order, and then they buried him under 10 tons of gravel. And the reason it wasn't done under NAGPRA is because it actually wasn't related to Native Americans. It had about as many markers for Native Americans as it did for Europeans, but it did have a close match to South Native Americans. NAGPRA, being the North American Grave Repatriation Act, does not apply to South Americans. And then he was talking about how archaeology is one of the most woke and far left branches of science that there is, and that's absolutely true. And they're emboldened by the Department of Interior Secretary, which is a Native American activist, woke woman herself, who reinterpreted NAGPRA this year, as he described, broadening it so it applies to now literally everything. And the archaeologists, who are all leftists themselves, they view archaeology as an evil, racist, colonizing act. And so in order to progress, for them, the idea of progress is the elimination of this evil, racist, colonizing act. And so they are quite literally systematically destroying all of North American archaeology.
So they want there just to be no archaeologists?
That is, the goal is the destruction of archaeology and turning it into, those articles that you were talking about earlier. But thousands and thousands of images have been deleted online as of this year from the update. It's not actually written into the law, but like I said, these archaeologists are enabled by this. They're emboldened by it. And so they've written policies themselves to even further restrict things, even beyond the extreme restrictions that NAGPRA now imposes. So the loss of information has been staggering this year alone, and it's only increasing.
So does that mean like there's just like the findings that archaeologists historically, they find these massive cities and civilizations that'll just kind of go by the wayside eventually?
Well, I'm specifically talking about the
you're talking about just here, in the U.S. Okay.
Yeah. So this problem is spreading across the world. This is a problem that is not just to the USA. I mean, Canada is just as bad, if not worse.
Oh, Canada's. Canada famously, they had the mass graves, and I remember when that first. Yeah, they never existed. I remember when that first happened, and I went on the boys cast, and I was like, "This is bullshit." Like, if you actually look at, because it's one of those things you see a headline, and you're like, "Oh my god, this is horrible," and then you start looking into it, and I'm not doing extensive research. I spent 10 minutes looking into it, and you're like, "Yeah, they've never even found anything. Like, they haven't found a single thing." And then a lot of them, they go unmarked graves, and you're like, "Well, yeah, because they use wooden grave markers, and over 100 years, like those things just deteriorate by the environment, so that's why they're unmarked." Right. But even still, they're like they use this ground penetrating radar, but it was just a huge grift. Like, it was people were like, "Oh, I can make tons of money Like, there's no money in finding the graves. There's money in saying you think there might be something there. Right? And so,
right.
But they burned down 120 churches in Canada. 0 repercussions from that. Like, the whole thing was insane. I mean, even still, like, if you bring that up in Canada, there's a lot of people who'll be like, yo, that's fucked up. Like, you can't say that there was nothing there, even though there's nothing there.
Wasn't Lauren Southern attached to that, and she got in trouble for calling it out?
I mean, that's like probably not even top 10 shit that she probably got in trouble for. But like, you know, normal, like there was a guy, I think Terry Glavin, who was a reporter for, I want to say the National Post. He printed something in Canada's like largest, I guess, conservative newspaper. And he got, I believe it was him, he got in a lot of shit for it. Because again, at the time, it was an insane thing. Like, it was just, it was like the George Floyd thing when someone says, like, you know, maybe this guy wasn't the best dude. And it's like, yeah, if you want to say that in 2020, like, good luck keeping your job if you work at, you know, a college or something. Like,
apparently threatening pregnant women
and
is
that's
now
basically the mentality.
Right.
So I was just saying that level of craziness, that's basically the mentality that exists omnipresent in archaeology and anthropology. It is like 99.9% very, very left, like you were saying.
And now I imagine Trump coming in, I feel like on his list of shit that he wants to get done, this I imagine would be pretty low on that list of doing anything for this.
I don't know. I talked to Dr. Weiss if she's been talking to people in his cabinet, and I don't think any real progress has been made yet. I mean, he's not even president yet, right? But there's some hope there. There's also some court cases. NAGPRA is actually a violation of the First Amendment because it forces the federal government to give deference to Native American religious leaders. So people don't really think about Native American religions the same way, but Mormons also claim American history. So imagine if the federal government wrote into law that scientists had to listen to and defer to Mormons anytime their opinion disagreed with the science.
Right.
That's what's been done for Native Americans. So it's a First Amendment violation. And it's also the DOI writing law, which they do not have the ability to do. That is the not Congress, but the Senate, right? And so there's been a case against Chevron, the oil company. They, I think, were suing like the EPA, and they won their case. So there's some hope that this might be overturned through that as well. But it does look pretty grim.
Yeah. Is anybody even working to overturn it, like to bring an actual like court case to have a look at this?
The only people that would are the people in anthropology, and everyone in that field. Even though, yes, the SAA did come out against it, they did it very softly, even though it takes a ton of power away from them. And in general, I think that's a good thing. But you're not going to find anybody in that field willing to stick their neck out for that, because it's just going to be looked at that they're doing something against Native Americans. And that's like the gravest sin that you can do in anthropology.
Interesting. I always wondered.
Dr. Weiss is the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah, she got treated very harshly for it.
Yeah, I always wondered, like, because the Truth and Reconciliation stuff in Canada with all the Indigenous people and how they were treated, I always wondered, like, when that would kind of come to America, kind of like full bore, because it seems like it started, like when it was happening in Canada, it didn't seem like it was a big issue. Like they're like in Canada, they are the number one protected class by far, whereas here, maybe, I don't know, due to whatever the slavery stuff, it's just like it seems like it's black people are the number one protected class here, but there it's not even close. Like they literally got at the front of the LGBT acronym, and you talk to most Native people, they're like, we don't subscribe to this nonsense. It's like Latinx. Right. They're like, we don't do that.
Yeah, Two-Spirit is kind of BS too. I can't get into the details of it, but it's not as developed as they claim it is. You can't really find a lot of historical.
There's none, as far as I know. They're like the first even use of it was like in the 80s or 90s or something.
Yeah, and it comes from a French word, berdache, which my understanding just is basically the F slur. And I'm not saying it because it's YouTube, in French, like that's where it comes from. I've talked to people about it before who agree with it, and they can never, like, they always use the word berdache past Two-Spirit. They never give me any word from any native language that it comes from. And there are certain things in history about there being multiple genders, but every single time there is, those are always for a very specific functional purpose. For like in Albania, there was a time when women were allowed to take the position of men, but it was because some families had their entire male populations decimated in a war with the Ottomans. So they functionally had to do that. It serves a practical purpose, whereas what we have is just a destruction of the definitions to the point where you can't even define what a woman is.
Right. Interesting. Anything else there, Goob? Anything you want to add? Any questions?
No, I just wanted to talk about how the federal government has made archaeology literally illegal, and it's all being erased and destroyed.
Crazy. And is there someone who's working to? I guess you might be, but Samuel, but like people who are working to kind
Dr.
of like
Elizabeth Weiss
preserve this.
Yeah. Dr. Elizabeth Weiss, she is an incredible archaeologist, anthropologist who is fighting against this. She is pretty much the only one. And yeah, I've been trying to raise awareness for about 6 or 7 months now. And Gregory Edward Little on Twitter has a massive private collection of images, and he's been sharing them on Twitter. So if you want to see some of it, you can find some from him, but pretty much all the images of all Native American artifacts have been erased January 12th.
It's crazy that
this year.
It's even images of the artifacts. It's not even the artifacts themselves, but just the images of them.
And it's quite a bit more than just the images. It even is artistic depictions, written descriptions. I mean, it's literally any and all information.
What about books? Is this going to trickle down to like books being removed from libraries?
I think it will eventually, and it's unclear to the extent that that's happened already, because books have been removed. Because if they also have images, there's some anecdotes that I've gotten from people that work with NAGPRA. One of them is that they were walking through university. They're doing an audit on a university, right? And so they're going through every single department. I mean, they're going through their physics department and everything, looking for anything Native American. They were going through the staff's offices, looking for paintings on the wall, because if they had Native American subject matter, they were taking them down. This is the extent of information erasure and removal that is happening across all major universities and archaeology departments in the U.S.
And it's pretty much just me, the Goob, and Elizabeth Weiss, and she's the only one with any power. I mean, I've talked to this on relatively large podcasts of like a few thousand viewers, but that's it.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
And from what I've seen, when you bring it up, there doesn't quite seem to be the reaction that I would expect when you tell people who are really passionate about history that it's been made illegal by the federal government. It hasn't. Yeah, it hasn't.
I mean, on my end, like that thread you talked about the Crusades, that thread got 8 million impressions. I've written 3 or 4 threads about NAGPRA. It's maximum 20,000.
Yeah.
Like people don't really seem to care. And to me, it's just a massive thing. And, the Goob found me eventually and kind of freaked out that someone else was talking about this. And we both had that reaction because it's just a massive thing that nobody is talking about. And for a while, I was like trying to get people to care. But it didn't go anywhere. Nothing gets picked up.
Right. And I guess at some point it just becomes too late. Like if they kind of have their way and then you go, well, all this has been done, it's not going to be undone, or it'll be very difficult to be undone.
Yeah. I mean, they've literally burnt x-rays. They are destroying research. So it's not just the objects and it's not even just being pulled from public display. It is also being destroyed physically. Some of this, at least.
What is the justification for destroying these things versus just removing them from public display? Like that seems so over the top.
Just even more extreme levels of woke. Yeah, it's the natives are spiritual people, and so having this information on them, it damages them spiritually and whatever nonsense you want to make up. They banned Dr. Weiss from accessing her own research archives that she was the manager of for the university, on the grounds of her being a menstruating person. They couldn't even use the word woman, but they banned women and physically changed the locks to the storage area so that she could not get in, and this was in retaliation because she spoke out against NAGPRA.
Wow. So this is like, I could see this bubbling up, but yeah, there's so many issues.
She's Dr. Peterson, but for
this topic,
she's the archaeology's Dr. Peterson.
Yeah. I don't know. You guys got to figure out a way to get people to care about this, because it does seem fairly serious and fairly hard to undo. That's for sure. Like once it gets.
This is probably the largest.
But anyway, thank you for
talked about on.
Oh, there you go. All right, Goob.
Thank you for entertaining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for calling in. Good talking to you, man. The Goob, everybody. Interesting. I have a question. This is from the chat from Drew Huntley. He says, has the guest measured skulls? If so, what did he find? If not, why not? And then he says, can we tell from language groups how washes? Oh, disregard that.
I have not personally, but I've read some of the studies on them.
Sure. Is that like kind of no bueno right now? Like you can't touch that?
Well, it's just not really my interest, right? I'm more interested in culture, but yeah, I mean, there are differences in the skulls of different types of humans, as in Neanderthals, Cro-Magnons, Homo erectus, like that type of thing. And then between different races, and a skilled forensic anthropologist can absolutely tell the difference. Usually if there's a big enough difference, but yeah, people's skulls have different shapes. They have different brows, how large they are. There are differences.
Yeah.
It's just
how long have you been studying anthropology?
Probably about 10 years.
When you started, was there like a lot of forbidden stuff in it, or is that kind of recently?
I mean, when I started it, I was starting my history degree, and I just ended up taking I didn't even barely knew what anthropology was, and I was still in the Marine Corps, and I took a intro to anthropology class, and then I started researching it. And then I started getting the degree when I actually decided to pursue it, and then once I learned a little bit more, I started seeing holes and gaps, and I had a few good professors who were interested in explaining some of the issues in the field, and then noticing the things about it.
What's the female to male breakdown of anthropology?
It's mostly female.
Mostly women.
Yeah. Probably about 70%. I'd have to confirm that, but I think it's about that.
Which is probably, I'd say, a lot of. Is anthropology considered a social science? No.
Yes. In general, some of the people like to argue that archaeology is just a regular science, but no, it's social science. Especially, cultural anthropology is definitely a social science.
It's definitely social science. Okay. Let's take another call here. Give me a second. We got Slav. This should be interesting. Slav,
Hello?
you there, man?
Hey, yeah, dude, I'm bricked up over this measuring skulls talk.
He's not bricked up in a good way, Samuel. Yeah. Temper your enthusiasm. Go ahead, Slav.
Okay.
First off, definitely shout out Goob. And this whole NAGPRA thing, it's like the most, like, bro, I'm from a communist shithole, so this censoring of information is ridiculous. I just don't know how to explain it to
especially in America. Like America, their whole deal here is that they're better than that. They go, everybody else does that. We don't do that.
And so my question about that, and I've posed this to Goob as well, is, well, one way, because I think it's a bad thing, it's removing information, but the one way I can counter it is in an unreasonable and horrendous way is if they remove all these physical artifacts that show that they existed or even suffered, then I could just say, well, you guys have no proof. You could show me that you guys ever existed or suffered. And
well, I imagine they're going to get, well, I'll say to that, as I imagine what's going to happen is slowly they're going to start opening their own museums or, displays in museums. And that'll be highly curated for that exact thing.
So the res is
he's Jewish, don't worry.
Concentration camps.
He's like a LARPing anti-Semite.
I talk to anti-Semites all the time. I'm not myself, but I'm familiar.
Me too. Go ahead.
But this does seem like a very look, Auschwitz to me is nothing but a tourist attraction and a gift shop. So, like, I think that's what they're trying. They're trying to do this whole history rewriting of the same way the Soviets did with the camps that, you know, my family was put in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is such a bizarre one because it seemed like forever the natives, their main issue was they're like, we want to be recognized. It's like at least in Canada, I imagine it was similar here where they're like, you guys did all this bad stuff. You don't talk about it ever. Like, we want you to talk about it and recognize that you did these things. And now it seems they're like going back on that even.
I mean, dude, I grew up in Texas, dude. They tried to brainwash us, telling us that the term noble savage was bad, when actually, when you read about the diaries from all these Plains Indians wars, all these U.S. troops, whites, blacks, and browns, they all talked in high reverence of all these Apaches and Indians and Navajos. They're like, yeah, no, like, you don't fuck with them, but they're clearly just, you know, uncivilized. But you have to have respect being in their presence.
I mean, I guess the main argument is just they were here first, and so you just have some sort of deference. Anything to add on this, Samuel?
Yeah, I mean, the Comanche and the Apache, if you're in like Texas, like the reason that Anglo settlers were ever brought into Texas was to provide a barrier between the Mexicans and the Comanche and the Apache because of how warlike they were. And, you know, they were even doing that to other people like the Tohono O'odham, the Pima and the Papago. Like, there's a really, really nuanced argument to be had, but this brings me to another thing that is huge, which is that there's this idea presented now that total war of like killing civilians is an invention of Europeans that we brought here to the Native Americans, but that's just not true. And there's archaeological proof of this in things like the Crow Creek Massacre, which is a mass grave of hundreds of Indians related to the current Arikari on the Great Plains. When
was this?
Just about 1350.
Okay.
Clearly pre-contact. Yeah, this is a mass grave of a bunch, decapitations, scalpings, evidence on the bones of that. And that's one site, but there's so much more cultural diversity and language diversity in North America because of the amount of different geographies that there were, that, you know, they're very different from one another. Some of them were more peaceful, some of them were more warlike, some of them practiced cannibalism, most of them probably didn't, but there were all these terrible practices going on. They weren't like, you know, not everybody was hanging out here living in harmony, not hurting each other. That's just not true.
Right. It was just very tribal.
I've even seen that where most of the more nomadic tribes were a little more violent. The ones who, especially the ones in like New Mexico, who like encamped in the side of like cliffs and canyons, they're a little more peaceful. Yeah, that's the same thing that was happening with Mongolians and all the other different slant, skinny-eyed people.
I mean, I imagine you go back anywhere at any point in history, at some point in history, this is happening anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
and
no
when
matter
you have
what
more
peoples.
groups, you have smaller groups and more groups, you're going to have more diversity in the culture. There's an example from New Zealand, the Maori, the indigenous people of New Zealand. There was another group called the Moriori, and they split off from the Maori, and they were pacifists to a fault because the Maori were so violent. And
how'd that work out for them?
They're gone.
Dude, the
Maori, yeah, it's like there's like a evolutionary, like, you know, kind of necessity to do this.
They Shanghaied a ship.
Hold on, Slav, hold on a second.
To feed themselves.
Yeah, go ahead there, Sam. Finish that thought.
The Maori, a few Maori guys, they forced their way onto a British ship at gunpoint, got a ride to the island the Moriori were on, and they murdered everyone they could find. They enslaved the rest. And because of a treaty with New Zealand, the Moriori, the descendants of them, the small amount of descendants, are still fighting for legal protections today.
Really? In New Zealand?
Yeah.
What
In
legal
Zealand,
protections?
yeah.
Just the similar ones that indigenous people receive?
Just They're yes, and they are indigenous to the place they're from, but because all of the land was ceded to the Maori, which of course is split up into different groups as well, but they had no legal claim to it. And as far as I think there might have been something quite recently, but it's a little late because they're pretty much gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine pacifists have done super well throughout history.
It depends on the location and this situation, but really, no, not in any, like if you're living in a law of nature, Hobbesian type thing, no, you're screwed because other people are not going to be pacifist.
Right. And it's just like, okay, it's like a game theory thing. You're like, if one person decides they're not going to be a pacifist, then you're just like, you're gone.
They were fine when it was a small population of related peoples living on a small island, but as soon as the Maori got there, they're screwed. It doesn't work anymore.
It sounds like just like an invasive species. You know,
call it that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, kind of like when you put it in like the context of like, you know, animals or whatever, where you introduce a predatory animal into an island that is prey, and you go, that's what happens.
And they have no natural defense against it or any sort of defense.
I mean, they have an ideological, you know, like not defending themselves.
Right. Which helped them when they were completely alone.
Right.
But not when others came.
Right. Go ahead, Slav.
Danny, it's that you brought up my question that I did call in for. So I'm more of a theorist of people should belong in the latitudes where they biologically originate from. Kind of like, you know, why you don't find a polar bear in the Amazon, you don't find a hyena in the Arctic kind of situation.
So specific
and
examples.
It kind of goes into this whole like, do you think that you originated from Africa? Because I'm a Neanderthal, then a Southern supremacist. Like I'm all Neanderthal pride over here. Like, and I just and obviously when you look at the, like, you don't even have to measure skulls with like a tape measure or calipers. You can just look at the skulls, and it's so different. I mean, for instance, sub-Saharans, you know, their skull gives them a limited prefrontal cortex, and they have a tighter amygdala, which just leads to impulsive behavior.
Is this true?
So it just
this is the forbidden.
I've never heard that.
Yeah.
I don't study that type of stuff though. I know that there are physical differences, but I don't.
Do you see them? Have your eyeballs ever seen the difference? Like, have you?
I mean, I don't know. I can't. I mean, I live in a pretty diverse city here in New York City. I've never seen people where I go, man, that person's head is specifically very small, or like.
Even to a Neanderthal, you might not be able to tell the differences with a Neanderthal. Like they were, you know, a subspecies called that, but a Neanderthal might look, you know, something like Joe Rogan, like, you know, stout,
right,
burly, that type of thing. Like the overlap of the, what are they called? I forget what they're called. The charts. Like there's an overlapping of the like the largest or the smallest Neanderthal and the biggest, burliest, most dense, robust Homo sapiens. They're going to look similar to each other.
Right. All right. Slav,
different physiological expressions between, for instance, there's an immense diversity between those who are like Nordic, which you kind of appear, and then all the way to like Slavs and Eastern Europeans, and then there's a physiological difference between all of the different sub-Saharans, from Somalis to.
I mean, everybody. I think it's pretty
typical differences.
Yeah, there's definitely regional differences. Like if you look at like a British person, even though they're not that far from, you know, say Scandinavia, they do look different. But
I mean,
I don't know if that's
were
just
at the forefront of studying
environmental
in the late 30s. Yeah, I mean, the Germans they put out a lot of different charts that kind of like match up, you know, with all this kind of stuff. It was like the late 30s, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's like this English guy, Churchill. He just wanted to start a war, but whatever.
Sure. All right, Slav.
Hey, thanks for your insight.
Yeah, thanks, Slav. Slav, everybody.
Yeah, I'm Irish, by the way, ethnically,
okay.
But my family's from Leinster, which is where the Vikings were. I definitely have Viking blood in me.
Right. Yeah, you got a little. Do you have problems with Novocaine? Have you ever had issues? So my the guy who
I need a lot of it.
So
I have to get like 9 shots in my
So
mouth.
You want to hear something very interesting? So
yeah,
some people have heard this story before, But my cousin, by marriage, he's a dentist. And when I got married, we went golfing. And Ryan Long, who I do a podcast with, he's got like a few.
Yeah, I know Ryan.
You know Ryan. So he's got like a
I
few,
know
like,
of him.
He's got a few like gingers in his beard. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, and, you know, the guy's a dentist. And then Ryan just asks him, he's like, yeah, you know, like I have this weird thing where whenever I go to the dentist, he's like, you know, they're drilling and they give me Novocaine, and I'm like, I can feel it. And they're like, we gave you tons. He's like, I'm telling you, like, I can feel this. This is like hurts and it's miserable. And then the dentist, like my cousin, basically is like, yeah, there's a weird thing where if you have any like ginger, they have to give you way more Novocaine. Like they're
I've heard of that.
There's like an immunity, weird like immunity to it.
Yeah, I get a red tinged beard.
Yeah.
If it gets longer, you can't see it right now with the lighting, probably.
But I could see how you could have it. Yeah. But there's like a weird thing where with the Novocaine thing. All right, let's take another call. 1 second, please. We got the conspiracy extremist on the line. Should we be lucky enough to reach our final caller of the evening? This one might be interesting. Hello.
What's up, Danny? How's it going?
Good. How's it going, buddy?
It's conspiracy extremist.
Yep.
So I got a question for this awesome guest, dude. I'm really appreciate all the information you're providing, but I got a little baby with me, so I'm gonna state my questions real quick, and I'm gonna jump off so you don't have to listen to the baby doing her cute baby noises. So first question is, when I know you mentioned you're not like specifically studying the differences in races, but to your knowledge, when they're looking at the differences and these bones and whatnot, is there one race that is more superior? First question. Second question is, are there differences between the skeleton of a white person and a Jewish person? And third thing is, hey, Danny, don't forget about me. Come on, Horseshoe's hand grenades.
Yeah, I told you, man. If we arrange it, I'm down to come on.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, man. I'll hop off and I'll listen for the answers.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So, superior requires that you create a criteria for deciding what superior means.
Yeah.
So if you create that criteria, I would say that generally people would be more superior for different environments. They might have a specific thing. Like, for example, the most genetic diversity in the world is in Africa. And, if you look in Southern Africa, you have the Khoisan people, which are as different from Bantu people of Central and Western Africa as, white people are from Asians, or more so. And then, of course, phenotypically, you can see Bantu to Somalis, as well as you go down to Kenya, East Africans, very, very tall. When you have like a specific environment, your body is going to evolve, or bodies over time are going to evolve. So an example from, our recent 2020 shutdown type thing, a lot of Black people, not just, African-American, but melanated people with dark skin, they require more sun to get the level of vitamin D that they needed to help their immune system. Right. So, that was an issue for a lot of Black people. It was recommended they take vitamin D supplements, try to get out in the sun. You're staying inside all the time. It's bad. Whereas a paler person like myself, I get sunburned. I'm from, like, my family is from Northern Europe. So that's where they evolved. So it was, our skin got paler to absorb more vitamin D. So in those environments, sure. But, as far as superior goes, it just requires that you create a criteria for that.
Yeah. And it depends on, like, I was listening to a book the other day, and they were talking, they made a funny point where basically, like, if you were, if you're 7 feet tall, I believe there's something like, there's like I want to say like one out of every, Ryan said this to me actually, it's like 1 out of every 10 7-footers on the planet will play in the NBA. Like it's crazy. Like you'll at least get like a shot in the NBA, right? Whereas like if you were 7 feet tall 200 years ago, or even 100 years ago, your best bet was literally being in like a carnival freak show. That was like the best case scenario for you. Whereas now you'd be like, this is like a genetic marvel. Whereas you put them in a different era, and you're like, you are a literal carnival freak show, and that's the only benefit that you can provide, other than maybe picking
being 7 foot tall 100 years ago because of like how nutrition changed over time is more like being like 8 or 9 feet tall today.
Right.
But like, yeah, definitely. Like, you know, George Washington was like 6'5" at a time when the average height was like 5'4" instead of like 5'6" or 7.
But I'm sure they existed 100 years ago. Like, I'm sure it was just more rare, but still.
Yeah. But
it would have been
a
a
7 foot person is very rare today, but it would have been even
rare.
more rare. So the equivalent of that would be someone who's so tall that they have a genetic issue where they probably won't be in the NBA because they have a medical problem.
Sure.
But it's superior is just, you have to make the criteria.
Right. And then the Jewish, are Jewish bones different? Do I have different bones?
Well, I think in North America, when we think about Jewish, we're thinking about Ashkenazis in general, but obviously there's Mizrahis as well as, you know, there's Ethiopian Jews and Sephardics.
Yeah.
Ashkenazi Jews on DNA tests, and this is like a convergent type thing, they end up looking, and not looking as in phenotype, but like, because of the mix of people that are Italians, as well as the mix of people that Ashkenazis are, they end up being very similar on genetic profiles to Italians. I don't know that much about this. We ended up talking about it quite a bit, but I was just at the beginning, I was just trying to share that as an anecdote about like an example, but I really doubt it. I think they would probably look very similar to a European.
European.
Right. I mean, because I don't even think you'd be able to really tell between a Western and Eastern European. I don't know if the differences are that big. You would probably be able to tell for like a Bantu person versus like a Khoisan or a Somalian, where they're going to be a lot taller.
Yeah.
From Africa, but you can tell between like, you know, a British, like a European versus like a Korean or a Japanese person, but it has to be a pretty big difference for you to be able to tell because of the variance between individuals in that population.
Right. Okay, let's take some more calls here. We have a super chat over on Rumble. This actually just is from JCXVII, and it says, "Oh my God, hi Sam," and then 3 banana peels. I don't know if that.
JC, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Okay, yeah. I
don't know
I don't know if the banana peels are any.
The banana is like the symbol of my show. My biggest supporters always drop bananas in, and it's because the banana is like a sacred fruit. Thank you for doing that, JC. So I get to.
Is that true? The banana is a sacred fruit?
In a lot of cultures, yeah, the banana is a sacred fruit. It grows very different from a lot of things. I have another show called 5 Till Midnight that I do every Monday. I just finished it right before this. I do it with a few other guys, including Adam Nutter, who's a comedian. I don't know if you know about him, but
I don't know him now.
He's great. I think you'd get along with him based on what your show is like.
Yeah, I'll check him out.
Yeah, check him out on Twitter. I'll send you his link. But I usually eat bananas on that show. I had an anthropology professor, a cultural anthropology professor, who ate a banana every class. It was a ritual that he had. And it's the way it grows. I mean, if you just research the banana, you'll like find this stuff out. But it's a really, really cool, really unique fruit. Other things, it cultivates very differently, and that's why there was that in them. Yes, yeah, and they were changed over time, but bananas are not like other fruits where like you can change the strains. There's like the banana is like it's I'm gonna get some of this wrong because it's like genetics, but those species are like it's like a copy of the same tree, and so bananas are very susceptible to blights. So like the banana Laffy Taffy, this artificial banana flavor. Cavendish might be the one that we have now, but there's varieties of them, right? But when there's a banana blight, it decimates the population of the bananas, which like, you know, brings in talks of apocalypse and things like that. But there's lots of reasons bananas are venerated in a lot of places. They're very important.
Interesting.
Yeah, bananas.
Couple chats. This is Conspiracy Extremists. Shout out for those. Kitty says archaeologists seem to be corrupt like all the other big institutional experts. And was it women's fault? And Drew says Tasmania has a picture of the last living man and woman, only successful genocide in modern era history. Okay. Let's take another call here. 1 second, please. We have David I don't know where this is going to go, but we shall see. Shout out, guys. We got an extra half an hour. So we'll be doing that with just open lines. David, David, are you there? No, literally the description says he's too high.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it says he's literally too high. Where he might be too high to figure out how to unmute himself.
Does your producer do that, or does
yeah, my producer? This is in the last.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
hey,
hello, David. You there?
Hey, yes, I am.
What's up, man?
Not much. How are you guys?
Very well. Very well. How
Fantastic.
are you? Good. I'm glad that I tuned in on this one. I kind of tuned in at the end. It was about anthropology, apparently. I'm not much of an expert, but very interested.
Well, that's why I bring on the experts,
subject.
so that people can ask them the questions.
Yeah, so I guess my question would be, I am a little high, so I apologize if it doesn't make sense.
No problem.
At the time when not we, the Spanish or whatever, found the Americas, it almost seems to me like the Aztecs or whatever were at a point very similar to like ancient, like old ass kingdom Egypt. So it kind of seems to me like there's definitely a development it's like naturally progressing towards like these city things, right? And there's evidence that the Aztecs were like writing stuff. So essentially, it seems to me that if they never got found, the progression would just be that they would go on to be, they develop all similar technologies and be, they would eventually move on from being hunter-gatherers, right?
No, and I'll tell you why. Do you have anything else to say before I rant on this?
No, I really liked the directness.
Okay, cool. So the number one, the Aztecs were not hunter-gatherers. They were living in a civilization. So the capital of the Aztecs, Tenochtitlan, was a city prior to them coming to it somewhat. It seems like they were writing certain things, but when we're talking about the progression of civilization, there isn't a linear progression of how civilization develops. It develops, it's not like a civilization game, like the game Sid Meier's Civilization. It's not like that where you develop one thing and then the next thing comes. It's based on your environment. So like this is one of those kind of woke-ish things, but it's also, there's a lot of truth in this, in that, at a certain level, it becomes very obvious who's more advanced than someone else because you have so much more technology that you have huge, dense, large cities. But at the same time, just because someone hasn't developed the wheel, which is an example people talk about a lot, about like Central American civilizations, they didn't have the wheel. How can they be advanced? Well, they did have the wheel. They had it in toys. They knew about the technology of the wheel, but they don't have large pack animals because there was the megafauna extinction in the Americas. So the wheel is really only useful when you have pack animals, when you have horses, mules, donkeys, oxes, things like that. And the Aztec capital was actually as dense, if not a little bit more dense, than a city like London was at the time, or Paris. It's like similar. It's in that area. So these are massive cities. This is a huge civilization. And they, like, part of why they are able to be so dense is because a lot of like biomass in those European cities is coming from the animals in that city, which like creates, its own issues. They have their own body waste, things like that. So the Aztecs needed more people to do those jobs that the animals did. And they also needed, they could fill up more space because they don't have those animals that are filling up that same amount of space. But the Aztecs themselves, the Aztecs were extraordinarily warlike and extraordinarily short-lived. So I compare the Aztecs to the Assyrians, and the Assyrians were people in the Middle East, in like the Fertile Crescent, that were a very large, very expansive empire, but they didn't last very long. Some of them still exist today. Like Patrick Bet David is part Assyrian. They're still an ethnic group today, but for a while they had this empire, but they were brutal. They were absolutely brutal and terrible, and they made enemies with everyone around them. First chance they got, the Assyrians got taken out by everyone around them because they did things like, and I'm not making this up, like turned conquered kings in their skulls into goblets that they drank out of. These were bad people.
Like Game of Thrones
Aztecs were similar. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. How long were the Aztecs around for?
A few hundred years.
Oh, that's
only a few hundred years.
And how long were the Assyrians around for?
As an empire, a few hundred years. There were two. There was the new Assyrian Empire and the other one. It might be a little bit longer. I know more about the Aztecs than the Assyrians, but not very long, not compared to these other long-ranging empires. But then you have someone like the Mayans. The Mayan culture was not an empire. It was more like city-states. They're often compared to like ancient Greece. And they were a culture that was around for like, 1,500, 2,000 years. The Olmecs are an older, generally thought of as a progenitor civilization to these other Mesoamerican civilizations like the Aztecs, the Mayans, as well as the Toltecs, Zapotecs, others like this. But now it's coming out that it's possible that a Mayan culture was contemporaneous with the Olmecs. And I don't think that the Aztecs or the Mayans, because it seems like what you were getting at wasn't necessarily the Mayans, but Mesoamerican civilizations in general. I don't think they would have had technology similar to us because of the differences in their technology.
Their needs were different.
Right. Their needs were different. They don't have pack animals, which is huge. They're going to make different choices. When you see civilization in in the Middle East, in North Africa, as well as Western Africa, in Europe and Asia, while these civilizations are pretty far away from each other, they're still connected over these long trade routes. Like there were some Romans that ended up in China. There were some Greeks that ended up in India. Like there is like technology and food and knowledge being passed between these far-reaching places. That's not true in the Western Hemisphere. So they have a completely different trajectory for how their technology is going to go. I would love to see where they would have ended up without the introduction of Eurasian diseases that end up decimating them. But I think it would have been very, very different for those two reasons. The big one being no pack animals. It requires a very different way of solving all these problems they have, as well as them not being connected through through technological and the technology, including like the food that they ate, the crops that they have. It would have ended up in a different way. It wouldn't have been similar to our own because they wouldn't be sharing them.
Right. Well, like the acre is how much like an ox or two or whatever can do in a day. So that's a tied unit of measurement to like beasts of burden.
Right.
That they wouldn't have developed. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
They don't have that.
I got one last thing. Since I'm a layperson, I love what you've been spewing, but I have noticed that a lot of the modern sources are very left leaning, and I'm pretty centrist guy. I'm a pretty liberal alt-right nut job. So who would you recommend as like someone to look into for research other than yourself, of course?
For anthropology?
Yeah.
What specifically are you interested in anthropology? Because it's very broad, right?
Right. I mean, I love the development of ancient Egypt. I love the Americas are a big source of interest recently, so I really like that that's the topic tonight.
Do you want more alternative stuff or more mainstream stuff?
Yeah. Alternatives, not like alien bullshit, but like also not woke shit. A medium somewhere in between there.
Yeah. Graham Hancock. Are you familiar with Graham Hancock?
Yeah, he's full of shit, dude.
You don't like Graham Hancock?
He's an aliens guy. He's an ancient aliens guy, bro.
He's explicitly not. No,
he's not.
Nothing to do with aliens.
No, he's not the aliens. He's the big flood guy.
Okay,
he's the America's guy.
Yeah, he's the American.
The only reason I say that is Milo Rossi is one that I've gotten into, and he is explicitly he's pretty liberal, but he's also got a whole series against Graham Hancock. But maybe I'll give
Milo
Graham another
Rossi
go.
Is full of shit, and he's attacked me and my friends personally.
Really, I'm sorry to hear that, man. That's kind of shitty.
I love anthropology drama.
A lot of stuff. Milo
no matter
Rossi
what
is a guy with an environmental science degree, who is friends with
torture.
He's
dude,
not.
let it out.
He's not on there.
No shit.
I would have to see. Look, man, I'm not too familiar with this stuff, but no, he's very tied in with the mainstream with another guy named Flint Dibble, who spouted a bunch of BS about
who had who had a legendarily bad episode of Rogan with Graham Hancock. Right?
Yeah. Actually, Flint Dibble.
What was that name? Flint Dibble.
Flint Dibble.
Yeah.
Flint Dibble. Oh, this is interesting. I'm glad I called.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see I have several videos on my channel which debunk what Flint Dibble has said, and all the stuff that Flint Dibble has said is stuff that's parroted by Milo Rossi. No, I mean, look, I can see why you would say that, having listened to Milo Rossi, but I know that he heavily agrees with Flint. And while I haven't seen everything by Milo Rossi, I know that Flint Dibble is full of crap. And a few examples of that are, Flint Dibble shared I have a bunch of threads on this, as well as multiple videos on my channel. I have another one coming out soon. Flint Dibble claimed that there was information on how fertilization of crops takes thousands of years. It doesn't. He said that to Joe Rogan. It doesn't happen. Flint Dibble said that there was a shipwreck off the coast of Italy from 8,000 years ago, and that we would definitely have ships if they were 30,000 years old. But that 8,000-year-old shipwreck off the coast of Italy was actually three canoes found in a lake in Italy. And he didn't know that in fresh water, things are preserved much better than in salt water. Flint Dibble tried to claim that storms do not destroy artifacts in the ocean, citing a study. Right. Citing a study that was based on shell middens that were not ships, based in one location in Florida. Flint Dibble he passed off a site that was twice dated, not in the presence of human artifacts, but identified as human, a Stone Age hunting wall. He tried to say that it dated to the Younger Dryas, which ended 12,700 years ago. But the two dates for the two places that was dated were up to, I think, 1,000 years after the Younger Dryas, and that was the first site he shared. Flint Dibble. And while Flint Dibble was talking about how we would have evidence of any ships that exist in the archaeological record, they would stay in the archaeological record from 30,000 years ago. That is directly contradicted by maritime archaeologists. And also, Flint Dibble brought up a theory that replaced Clovis first, which is this old theory of humans being in the Americas 12,000 years. Flint Dibble brought up the I forget what the name of the theory is, but he brought up the theory of I forget the name, but the new prevailing theory that Flint Dibble expressed support for is one of shipwreck navigation. So Flint Dibble expressly supports the idea that we were seafaring during the Ice Age over 12,600 years ago, and then also believes that we would have records of those ships in the archaeological record if they ever existed. But he also is either completely unaware of, I think that's more likely, or he lied about the fact that there is 50 years of research of over a dozen sites across 4 continents in the world of there being seafaring across distances of tens to hundreds of kilometers during the Ice Age. It was always happening, and we've never found a ship. And the maritime archaeologists have no problem with it, and they've proven it based on the depth of sea level in certain areas at the time, and knowing that there were human artifacts based on their isotopic profile of these natural goods like flint, chert, different natural goods that have traveled between islands. So we know that humans brought them to other islands. So we know that they traveled over those distances, but we've never found a ship.
Damn, Flint Dibble just got shipwrecked.
Yeah.
So Flint Dibble's full of shit,
I'm going to get
so
out,
is Milo
but
Rossi.
Thank you, fellas. Danny, I love your shit.
Thanks,
I
buddy.
appreciate you guys being on. I'm going to get out of here. Bye.
Thanks, man. All right, that is all with you, Samuel. Thank you very much for coming on. What's the best place people can find you? I'll put everything below so people can get the links and whatnot.
Yeah, a lot of my writing is on Twitter, illegitimate scholar, ill_scholar, and then illegitimate scholar on YouTube. And I'm putting that in the chat right now.
Yeah, put it in the chat, and I'll.
Is a liar.
Hope he's watching right now. That Flint Dibble.
It is funny. He watches everything I do.
Really?
He watches a lot. He tried to get me banned on Twitter.
What?
He tried to get my friend D Dunking Dan, who was on Joe Rogan last month or the month before, with another friend, Jimmy Corsetti. Tried to get them banned. He told Jimmy Corsetti that his grandfather would be ashamed of him.
What?
He slandered him as an anti-Semite. He called him a liar. It's all this stuff, man. He's the worst.
And does Flint Dibble, is he employed at like a university?
Yes, the University of Cardiff in Wales.
Okay. So he's kind of doing that mainstream thing, I guess.
Yeah, he's destroyed. He created a public persona and immediately destroyed him. I mean, he bans everyone on Twitter who says anything about him. The other day, he just compared him having his reputation destroyed on Joe Rogan. And I'm not making this up. You can find this yourself. He compared Mel Gibson losing his house to his own reputation being tarnished. That's not a joke.
This guy's such a dork. I mean, I watched some of his thing on Rogan. I was just like, this guy's such a dork. So yeah, that's been confirmed.
And I have multiple videos on him on my channel and what he said and lying about Graham Hancock.
Right. Well, I will put the link below. People can go check that out. Then go check you out on Twitter. Thank you very much for joining me. Samuel Urban, everybody. Illegitimate scholar. Much appreciated. And go check him out. Have a good one, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Take care. All right. That was Samuel. You guys gave enough super chats. So we got an extra half hour of unscreened open lines. This is exciting because we've never done this before. And we have a caller waiting. And if you want to call in, 1-888-949-2969. It's whatever you want to talk about. We got 30 more minutes of sweet. And make sure to go check out Samuel, everybody. That was pretty awesome. That was a great show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. But there's still more show. We still got more show. We have someone who's on the line. He's drunk. How drunk? I don't know. But he's drunk. He's for sure drunk. Phone lines are open. No screening. Anything you want to talk about. But we have this drunk guy who he's called in like 50 times. He's listening to me talk right now. And all he's got to do is it's prompting him to unmute himself. And he might be so smashed right now that he can't unmute himself. Thanks again, Sam. He's in the chat right there. Go make sure to subscribe to his channel, Illegitimate Scholar, right there. Oh, do we got him? No, we don't have him. He can't figure it out. How drunk is this guy? I want to know. He kept hanging up, and then he would call back, and he just can't figure it out. Well, we'll have to take some other callers. But if there's anything you want to talk about pertaining to the Jewish tunnels, the LA fires, TikTok's getting banned. Okay, we got another caller here. Let's take this one while the drunk guy tries to figure himself out. Will he be able to? That's the question. Hello.
Hey, Danny, it's JR. How's it going?
Hey, what's up, JR? How you been, man? Long time.
Good. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, how are things?
I've been listening, but I usually watch them on VOD.
replay.
So I'm busy all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I get how it is.
I tried calling you earlier, but I was on hold and I got actually called out to an emergency page because I'm a fireman and
Really?
we had a car accident.
Oh no!
And that's the reason why I was calling, was because the guy that was talking to you earlier about batteries is full of shit.
Interesting. So
lithium-ion batteries make a big difference.
Yeah,
they burn much hotter and they burn much longer. And so to make fire, you need fuel, you need oxygen, and you need heat, and obviously a chemical reaction. But you also need time. Like if you take your lighter and you hold it to your wooden closet door, it's going to take you a fuckload of time to get that thing to actually take, right?
Right.
So the idea with a lithium, and I'm not saying that, this shit about lithium-ion batteries and the smart meters on the houses in California is totally like this big thing that's obviously true. I'm just saying that there is a difference between your traditional alkaline battery being involved in a fire and a lithium-ion battery being involved in a fire, even if it's small. And it's theoretically plausible that if we're talking about electric smart meters, is that what's being discussed?
Yeah, they were electric smart meters that have lithium-ion batteries. This was the conspiracy, and if you go on Twitter, it's all over Twitter and TikTok.
And they're for metering the electrical usage of your home.
Correct. Just the hydro.
Okay, so without knowing anything, without having gone on Twitter, I don't even have a Twitter account, but an electrical meter is usually right next to your exchange box. So like the main voltage, all the high amperage and everything comes into your house, usually right beside your meter. So you have all of your electricity coming into your house, and it's probably, and like where I live, it's code that the meter and the main shutoff and the electrical input to the house are all located in the same area for safety reasons and for standardization. So if you've got these batteries sitting right next to where all of the electricity comes into your house, and these batteries are catching fire, then yeah, you create this little fire. And even if it is a small fire, it's intensely hot and it will burn for a very, very, very long time. So it gives it a lot of time to create a lot of heat. And all of that heat builds up, and then what happens is all of the material around that small, tiny little fire starts to give off gases, and it's those that become flammable and eventually combust and cause, the heat then runs up into the walls, and especially if you've got wood frame houses, it's going to burn up through the walls. And so, yeah, it's totally feasible that if the issue is that these things are catching fire and causing the rest of the house to go up, that's possible. But there's also like lots and lots and lots of funky shit about that whole
So you're
in
you're in British Columbia. I could say that.
That's
hopefully. Right. British Columbia has a lot of fires.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on everything that's going on in Los Angeles? I imagine you have some opinions on this.
Well, I know probably all the stuff that everybody else does, which is that it looks like it was all terribly managed. We've long derided the Californians for refusing to do proactive burning. Like, you need to get rid of all the fuel loads to try and mitigate the risk of wildfires, and they have, because they're eco-minded people, they have been really, really slack about doing controlled burns to create cutoffs. Like you create breaks between the really heavily forested area and then what's called the WUI, or like WUI, which is the wildland urban interface. So when you live in a rural community outside of the really urban area, you usually have houses that are nested into a little bit of parkland or a little bit of forest, but it's like the forest and the urban area sort of mixes at that point. And that's where it transitions from like a proper forest into the urban areas. And people get paid lots and lots of money, especially in a state like California that has lots and lots of money. They would have professionals who get paid to look at these maps and go, okay, these are really, really high risk areas. If this little mountain were to flame up, and wildfires happen all the time. It's the reason why many tree species exist. Like, there's a lot of ponderosa pines would not exist on Earth without wildfires. It's the only way they reproduce. Right. So these people look at this and they say, we need to do burns here and here and here. Though that way, if a wildfire catches in these really large tracts of land, it'll only be able to spread this far, and then it runs out of fuel. But Californians, because they drive Teslas and they are, hippies, they don't want to do burns because they see any type of burning as being an environmental thing. So it takes a really long time for them to do these burns.
But isn't that a natural thing? Like, isn't like wildfires just like literally a part of nature? It's how like the soil kind of regenerates.
Right, that's what I was saying, that there's lots of trees that only reproduce by virtue of wildfires. So wildfires are totally a natural thing and do always happen, but it is a natural thing of self-preservation that we are expected to try and protect our people from those wildfires that are expected to naturally occur. So when you know that it's likely that these huge forested areas inland of a place like LA are likely to go up in flames at some point, you need to have a contingency plan. And one of the most important ones is just minimizing the fuel load in that wildland urban interface area. So
right,
there's a big initiative in my province where they're for free at no cost to the homeowner. They'll send people who are trained in this to go to your house and say, here's all the things that would make your house vulnerable to a wildfire, and here's stuff that you can do that would improve the condition. And they look at things like the material that's on your roof. Obviously, if you have a metal roof versus an asphalt shingle roof, that makes a big difference because most of this wildfire spread is from embers flying through the air and then landing somewhere new and then sparking up a new fire in that spot. So the fire actually reproduces in lots and lots of little patches, and then all those patches connect, and then you get a big, huge ripper.
Right.
And so the siding,
especially with 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, and then the stuff that's around your house, all these things contribute to it. Anyways, it looks to me like all the fuck ups at the state and maybe the county level or whatever meant that there wasn't really much protection at the wildland interface area, which allows it to then get into that community. And then moving into the really urban areas like it has is going to be a failure more at the municipal level where they ran out of water. They apparently didn't fill the reservoirs. They apparently didn't capture all this water that could have been captured. Apparently they've gotten rid of lots of their water for I don't know what reason, probably because of business deals or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there. But anyways,
the whole thing seems like
in the fire department. We they have nicknames for lithium ion battery chargers where it's like, oh, here at that Christmas party last year, some of them got given out and they're like, here's a bomb for you to put in your house.
Right.
They joke about how these things are, if you do not want to have these things getting caught on fire because they just burn and they burn and they burn and they burn, and you can't put it out with water like you can put out other types of fire. They just keep burning. So you could submerge it in water and that chain reaction will continue. All you can do is keep cooling it to try and slow down the reaction. Which is why electric cars are a major problem now. When electric cars catch on fire, they can feasibly burn for days, and it's impossible to stop it. We just have to keep hosing it down to try and mitigate how quickly the fire is spreading from each of those cells. Because a Tesla is thousands and thousands of tiny little AA batteries, basically. And so as it moves from battery to battery, it gets more heat, and the faster that spread happens, the more intense. The higher the risk.
Yeah. Any thoughts on what I was saying earlier with people like that, the flame retardant stuff? No, the flame retardant.
I don't know what product.
I
don't know what product you're talking about.
It's called FosCheck
exactly,
LC95. It's the stuff that the pink shit that they were spraying all over LA. Could somebody feasibly just, with some sort of pressure washer attachment, just coat their house and be safe?
Right. Well, that's the thing is you need some way to apply it. We use foam for a few different purposes, but it needs a special type of device that has water pressure behind it that mixes the foam into the water at the right ratio so that it's going to stick to something.
Yeah.
So that could work, but all that is going to do is kind of slow down how quickly that fire is going to happen, because in those neighborhoods where you see lots of houses really close together and they've got palm trees and all these things in between them, so there's lots of fuel available for the fire to spread around the house. Eventually the heat from everything, and the bigger the fire is, obviously the larger the distance that heat can radiate to cause the fire to spread. So the side of the house is going to be slightly less resistant probably to sparks and embers hitting it, but eventually the heat will get so intense that the wood underneath will just become capable of combusting, because you reach a point where a temperature is so high that you don't even need to have a point of ignition. It'll just go up on its own.
Right. Right. Okay. So then
But it wouldn't be a bad thing to have. You'd be better off having a jug of that stuff than you would a liter of almond milk. Which
Sure. I did. Did you see that photo of someone trying to put out a fire with almond milk? I don't know if that was real.
I did that.
I don't know if that was, but that was.
Oh, I'm sure.
I think it was. I was like, this is the most LA shit I've ever seen of in my life. You're like, get the Air One almond milk. Anyways, thanks, JR, man. Appreciate it.
I'll let you go. I missed most of the show, but I'm going to go back and listen to it because I was out on that car crash. But
cool, man.
I hope you keep doing it, and I'll kick my $1 a month up to $5 a month, and maybe that'll help make a difference.
Maybe. Thanks, dude.
Okay, good night.
JR, everybody. JR, a White Square gang from the get-go. He was there from the early days. All right, I'm going to try and see if this super drunk guy is going to pick up here. While I do, I'm going to read some super chats. Conspiracy extremists. The answers are white, 2, 1 white, 2 yes, 3 right away. Logan Sorter, 5-4 king. That's a short king right there. Logan Sorter says, okay, you have 20 minutes to go. 2 more super chats. Gimp Gadley, I'm a goddamn fool. Logan, eat more veggies, drink more water, wash your legs. I don't wash my legs. I'm never going to wash my legs. It's not happening. Dylan Farnham, there's always money in the banana stand. Max Headroom says Danny is the highest value international J. Thank you. And Logan Sorter says, I still need a wrench. There shall be no wrenches. Maybe I'll give Logan a wrench. Should I give Logan a wrench? Okay, this guy's not picking up. He's so fucking smashed that he just cannot do this. So let's go to somebody else. Let's see if this works. Let's see if he's not drunk enough. And again, thank you very much, everybody, for joining me. Hello, you're on Low Value Mail. Who am I speaking with?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how's it going? It's Charlie from Florida.
Charlie from Florida. How you been, man?
Good, man. How you doing? I just wanted to. I'm sorry to hear about the show. I hope. I'm a Patreon member, so I've been on the Patreon.
I appreciate you, and obviously everybody who supports the show. I do appreciate you. I've been doing my best here to make the show go. It's not my preference to end the show. I'll say that. That's definitely not my preference. But it's just the shows take up a lot of my time. And it's
I'm sure.
It's just getting to the point where like last week I was working on the show. Like I spend like a good chunk of my Monday like working on the show, and Tuesday I gotta like edit all these clips and stuff, and then the whole time I'm like on Twitter looking at Twitter, and I'm like, shit, I could crank out one of these AI videos that'll get like millions of views, or I'm like working on the show that I make like $50 a week on, and so anyways. I like the show. It started as a passion project. It certainly was. But unfortunately, just the realities of the world is there comes a time where I got to be like, making a decision here. So again, not my preference to end the show. Hopefully we'll figure it out. We'll see. Maybe some magical sponsor a la Disney movie comes in and we can save the show.
Yeah, hopefully.
But I'm going to give it my all. I promise you.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoy it. It's fun. It's funny. I find it like really funny just to call in and listening to people's opinions about different stuff and everything. It's all just, I mean, they're just fun. They're just fun shows. Not a lot of shows like that.
No, there's, I mean, when I started this, I was just like, man, there's a million just podcasts that are all the same, but I'm like, there's no call-in shows. And again, I'm doing a thing that was just a fucking radio show in the 80s. Like I didn't invent this or anything, but I figured it would be a nice change of pace. But I don't know if it's just the YouTube algorithm or what. It's just like, can't really get it cooking, but who knows? We'll figure it out.
Right.
I have faith.
Yeah.
I have the faith.
I do too. Yeah. It's been doing well for a while, so hopefully we can figure it out. That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about like the people that can't distinguish like the AI videos? Like
the last one I did, the last one, I don't know if anybody saw the last one I did, the Gavin Newsom one. This one,
yeah, I saw that one. That was
this
hilarious.
one, legitimately,
that was great.
I did that one, and then I started reading the comments on YouTube. And first off, like normally, like one of these videos, I get like 20 or 30,000 views. I have like 30,000 subscribers, and I get like 30,000 views or something. This one in like an hour had 30,000 views. And I was like, oh man, this might get my channel nuked. Like I was actually worried about it because all the fucking comments were responding to it like it was real. It was. I was like, this is bad. Like, I honestly, there was a point the other night where I was like, should I just remove this? Like, I legitimately.
I saw it on Twitter. I didn't read the comments on YouTube yet, but I got to go look at those.
Dude,
oh my God.
YouTube right now, there's like on YouTube, I believe there's like something like 2,500 comments on the YouTube.
Oh wow.
Video.
Oh my God.
It's like something like it's legitimately. Let's see, there's 150K and there's 2,600 comments. I would say 90% of them think it's real.
You would think that they would see that your channel, they're like, oh, he's a comedian. So
it says comedy in it.
Not...
The description says parody. I have a thing on the end of it that's like with Donald Trump saying to subscribe to my channel. Now, here's the thing. People watch this shit. They're like doing something else. They're not really paying attention. Maybe they're like 70 years old. Their eyesight's not great. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah,
it's fucking like this was the one where I'm like, oh man, this is. And I had a few people who were like, Danny, you're really like playing with fire, like some comments like that. And again, I'm like, it's First Amendment protected. It is parody or like satire. Or whatever.
I'm noticing that there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of that now where people are just so like they're so into what they're mad about at the time that they don't even like take the time to like think about whether it's like if this is a parody or satire or what.
Yeah, they just go, hey, I hate this guy. I'm like, I fucking hate this guy. They see a thing. Like, and like there's like a line in it where he calls fire retardant fire R-wordant. I'm like, I thought that's like the giveaway. You go, okay, I'm not watching something that's real here. And like, again, the lips don't like match up that well because
and
it's
especially,
crazy.
like you said, the ending would give it away. The ending should give it away. Having Trump, do the message at the end and everything. Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
It's So that's all I wanted to say. I support your channel, and I hope
appreciate
you
it, dog.
Going, man.
Me too. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate you all. I would like to make that clear.
Man. God bless. And,
thanks, buddy. Thanks, Charlie.
Take care. See you, man.
Later. Yes. And honestly, I don't know what to do with it. I'm not going to stop doing the AI thing. By the way, Runaway Slab says the show has taken up a lot of my time. The thing that earns me money is taking up my time. Guys, I don't even make minimum wage. I probably make server minimum wage from doing this show if I'm lucky. I don't know what you think, how much money I make doing this in the bathhouse, but it's like literally nothing. It's not literally nothing, but some weeks I don't even make as much as the producers of the show. I really don't think you guys understand. Not that I'm not like, it is what it is. Like, people expect podcasts to be free. I get it. I don't subscribe to any podcast Patreons myself. I don't really listen to that many podcasts that have Patreons, but hello.
Yo, Danny.
What's up?
Hey, so I'm out here in SoCal by the San Bernardino area, by the mountains, and I'll basically grew up over here, and I'll experience some of the wildfires, and a lot of fishy stuff as far as the management. Like, it all just checked out. So, just a local guy, giving all validation to all the talk, and it's just a real sad scenario. But
do you think this will be enough for people to not vote Democrat next time around? Because I know it's a pretty steady Democrat state, besides like the odd Schwarzenegger and whatnot.
Oh no, it's a red state, but just with the big blue cities.
I know, but seeing as like the big blue city is now affected by something like such incompetence that they essentially voted for. Like, do you think this is a way? Because I could easily see like this whole thing happening, and then everybody's just like, can't vote for the orange guy.
Oh no, like, people low key, it's like the back of the minds, it's like they're thinking the same thing. Like, they're basically fed up, and it's just like, you got to be careful of. Well, you see a pink-haired person, and it's like, okay, you know what their politics are, so you don't just say anything.
But I'd say,
but once you're on the side.
Yeah, but I'd say, like, because a lot of the affected areas, like Palisades, like, these are all $5 million. Like, you look at the map and you're like, it costs just to get like a starter home in these areas $5 million. But these are all liberals, like across the board. These are all like super rich people who are, they still vote blue. They're in LA. It's just kind of the thing to do. The question is like, are these? Yeah, you're like, are these people gonna come around that you're like, yo, like it really matters who you vote for. Like it matters to the point of like actually life and death sometimes. Like it's not like tampons in the men's room. This is like, yo, your house is gone now.
No, it's just like I would say like a select few or like a minority of those people that are just like in those little isolated communities, and you got a big chunk in the middle that kind of sway around and come to realize what's going on. And kind of sad though, like my heart does go out to the ones that had their houses handed down to them from like 3 generations.
Of course.
So that sucks for them.
And they like lost their insurance. Like I saw like they're blowing up right now, but like Heidi Montag and that guy Spencer or whatever from the Hill or OC or Hills, the Hills. No, the OC was like the actual fictional show, but they were basically on some thing saying like, their insurance company just dropped them for fire insurance, which I understand. Like, again, the insurance companies, if they're wrong, like they lose their whole company. Like, if you're catastrophic, they're rarely wrong, because being wrong as an insurance company is like your insurance company's gone. Like that's it for your. Whereas like if you're wrong as the mayor, you're like you could just run again and maybe get reelected, but it's not like life and death. If you're a politician or whatever, like they go, yeah, maybe I'll get reelected regardless because I'm just in like a deep blue area. Whereas,
there's up in Pasadena or Altadena where they had like that other separate fire. I heard a good friend of mine that like, he checks out. He says there's a large Black community up there that they were kind of like moved from the city out to the boondocks, so to speak, and had to like build that community. So a lot of their wealth and like handed down loans, just went up in flames. And that's one thing that happened.
And I mean, your average American, like again, these mostly aren't average Americans, but like your average American, if they have any wealth, it's just in their home. Like most people, just their money's in their home, and if you happen to be uninsured, then, and it sounds like they're going to essentially socialize a lot of the losses anyways, because a lot of people like, I think they're only that like whatever fair or care thing. That's the California insurance. I think care, it's only up to $3 million. So they're saying that if you had a house that's worth more than that, like a lot of those, and again, it's a weird thing because a lot of these people are like probably very wealthy. Like this is a rare thing, but I can imagine that all these people will, for the most part, be made whole in some capacity at the expense of people like you.
Yeah. Now, last thing, as far as like the big forest fires out here, like in the San Bernardino forest, I saw this little documentary about it where it's beneficial to have those big, large brushes to kill off all the small little sprouts that come up and compete with the water for like. They compete with the big, large oak tree or big trees that have like thick insulation that could withstand those wildfires that occur naturally, But because they're so protected in regulations, they don't have a chance. Like all these sprouts just like, they just get ready and primed to like flare up, and next thing you know, like they're just burning across the land.
Right. Yeah. So. I mean, it seems like there's somebody who could be put in charge who could deal with this competently. Like, again, it's not like New York City burning down or like Hurricane Sandy where you go, yeah, this happens once every 100 years. Like we legitimately, it's not something we can prepare or expect. You're like, this happens every year. Like Malibu's there was some fire in like the 60s or 70s in Malibu where like all these houses burned down. Like this is an annual thing. Like you need to have every contingency. This isn't, you can't be like, I'm caught flat-footed. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. People are waking up. Like it's all the information's out there, and, thankfully the tides are turning, and, you can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle. The
not now. You
right?
can't. Like, no, definitely not now.
Like you can't fool people, and it's like, it's just sad because I do rub shoulders with these liberal types that are hoity-toity, right? And they're well-meaning people, but they're just so like, I don't want to, like, you could say ignorant, but just shrouded, like caught up in the echo chamber, right? Because they all agree with each other and they don't have to get no pushback like in real life.
Right. I think honestly, it's like they're almost like they were very comfortable being almost detached from reality a bit because it wasn't that difficult, and now they've kind of come head on with like reality, and you go, oh, okay, this is not a tenable thing. Like you can pretend a lot, and then you go, okay, well, your fucking house just burned down, so.
Yeah, definitely. Now, as far as like the liberal movements or like the Women's March and all that, like it's not going to be as much as, it's just not going to catch on, you know, as far as like the Trump resistance.
I mean, if it turns out that some illegal immigrants started the fire or started some of the fires, like, that's it. You got to be fucking out of your mind if you still support this shit after that. Like if you're going to be like one of these fervent anti-Trump people where you're like, your house is gone. All the shit in your house.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But good talking to you, Danny. I appreciate you taking my
thanks,
call.
man. Appreciate it. Bye. All right, I'm going to take one more call. I'm going to take one more call here. And the drunk guy, I think the drunk guy might be dead. I think he legitimately might be passed out. Hopefully he doesn't have a cig in his hand, burning down his house. Max Headroom says, give Danny some fucking money. I honestly would prefer not the super chats. Just the Patreon would be much better. But thank you, Max, and for the Sephora budget. I assume it's for my wife. I don't even know if she shops at Sephora. Probably. Guys, you wouldn't even, I mean, if any of you have, Logan says, I said, get yourself something nice, not something expensive. I don't buy my wife shit. She's got her own money, which she just blows through. Our place literally looks like I joke about it all the time, but our house looks like an Amazon fulfillment center with the amount of shit. Sometimes she'll order so much stuff that I need like a hand cart to get it into our house, like from a day's worth of stuff. Let's take, you know what? We're going to get the hard money troll. Haven't talked to him in a while. And I know he lives, in the area. This will be the last call. If you didn't get through tonight, call at the Bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 PM, Bathhouse. We got a good lineup. Hard money troll.
What up, Danny?
How's it going, buddy? Long time, man.
Is up? Yeah, is this did I catch the last show?
No, this is not the last show.
The last?
No, this is not the last show.
Oh, I thought you were. I could have swore.
No, tonight is not the last show. I'm attempting to salvage this show and the Bathhouse. I'm doing my best.
You know, I recall somebody else saying something similar to that on their podcast. Fucking Silly Pants Matt St. Home, who apparently just got fucking engaged.
Yeah.
He once told me and everybody else that this wasn't the last fucking Hard Money podcast.
Yeah.
And he never came back, Danny.
Sometimes
is that what
happens.
You're going to do? Can I get you on?
This is
get you on the record saying that you aren't going to do it?
This is definitely not the last episode. 100%.
Is it because you're worried Trump's going to send you back?
No, Trump ain't sending me nowhere. No. I mean, I don't want to drone on about this, but it's just this,
No, I heard it. Don't even worry about it. Yeah. It's a money to time
It's just,
ratio.
I need the show. Yeah. It's just the time. I can't do the show for fucking $3 an hour. For basically,
Does that mean
honestly, I could if it was growing, but the problem is it's not even growing. So it's like I think about it, I'm like, what's this going to look like in 2 years? It's just going to be like it is now, and I go, okay, well, at some point you got to know when to cut your losses, I guess.
Nah, you're better off working on the AI videos, honestly.
I know. That's the problem. Is I know I am, and every time I spend a day working on this podcast, I'm just like, fuck, I should not be doing this.
Yeah.
And again, when I didn't have the AI videos even 6 months ago, so I was like, at the time, I go, okay, well, this is, it's not like I'm if or kind of thing. But anyways, I don't want to talk about this. What's up, man?
I definitely caught the fire R word. I really like that.
Yeah, you realized it was not real, unlike 95% of fucking Republican boomers?
Well, because I've been trying to trick everybody in my life that says you can't say retarded. So all right, well, how you put out fire and get them to say that.
Yeah. So are you near the fires?
No, I'm north.
Okay. So
I'm always a little closer to Matt St. Combe. I have
Cool.
to constantly be on that slippery.
For people who don't know who Matt St. Combe is, he's the founder of the Hard Times, and a buddy of ours.
It doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Nobody
know
cares.
this.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of people actually
Nobody cares.
know the Hard Times, though. The Hard Times is legendary.
I mean, they used to be good, right?
Yeah.
But now they just
now it's kind of
now they don't got you, they don't got Ryan. They're floundering, bro.
Yeah, now it's kind of just liberal slop. This is so crazy. The guy who I just hung up on, the guy who's so drunk that he can't unmute the phone, and then he calls back instantly, but he can't figure out how to unmute himself.
Yeah, well, he only could take one more caller, and he had his
I know.
chance,
I mean, I gave him 20 chances.
My time.
Yeah. I gave him 20 chances. So you're nowhere near the fires?
No, I'm not. But all right. Have you been doing any of the? I mean, you haven't because you're in the United States. But Poly Market, you fuck around with that Poly Market shit.
Yeah, I did. I have a VPN. I famously bet against those intersex boxers in the Olympics. I took the field for both of them and I lost. Pretty good, huh? Pretty good.
Hey, you miss all the shots you don't take, right?
Dude, I literally bet against the high testosterone borderline men who are beating up women because I'm fucking so smart.
No, somebody who shouldn't be named, mutual friend of ours, he was saying the opposite, that you always bet on the transgender.
Yeah, if you're talking about Ed, we can say it's Ed. I don't know if you know if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, we're not going to give any
exactly what I was
details.
talking about.
But Ed literally was DMing me the whole time, being like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He's like, "Bet on the dudes," and I'm like, "Nah." I'm like, this one chick. I'm like, she won gold at the last Olympics. I'm like, I think she's gonna. I like the field bet, where I get to take I was betting on basically, I think at that point I was betting on 7 of them against 1. I go, no, I'm going to take the 7. It was paying like 3 or 4 to 1 or something. I'm like, I think that's a good bet. And then literally both the intersex
Well, it's all about the
gold.
odds, right?
Yeah, I was like, that's good value. I'm
playing...
like, I get 7 people and like just one of them has to win versus like borderline man. I mean, again, he was right. He made like tons of money on that. But that's why.
I'm not completely against like right now on Poly Market. If you bet $5, and this isn't an advertisement, right?
Yeah.
But if you bet $5 on if somebody besides Trump, Kamala, or JD Vance is going to be inaugurated as president.
Yeah, I was talking about this last week, actually. Yeah, I was talking about this last.
Put like 50.
I mean, that seems like free money for Trump. Like Trump's only 98. Last I checked, Trump was 98.5% chance to be inaugurated.
Yeah, exactly.
That seems like that's
$20 could get you $4,000.
Oh, now it's 99.4. But it's like you could literally last week you could buy $1 for 98 cents, and it was like, who else is going to be inaugurated? Like I guess you're betting on will Trump die in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy bet.
Ding.
Yeah,
well,
that's dark, man. I mean, dude, Poly Market has some fucked up bets. You could bet on the fire about like how contained the fire would be and like how many acres would have burned by like Friday, essentially. And so you're basically incentivizing people to like light fires. Because you can bet.
You can bet on how many times Gavin Newsom says literally.
Yeah, but you can literally bet on you can just go light a bunch of fires and then collect money. I mean, obviously.
That's not an advertisement either, right?
No, and I guess you could just commit insurance fraud, and that's the same thing. You go light a building on fire that you own, and that's the same thing. So yeah. All right. Well, it's good talking to you, man. I got a boogie here.
Yeah.
I
don't have anything more interesting to say. So
all right. Well, good talking to you, man.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be bugging you at some point.
Absolutely.
Love
Call
you.
in.
Take care. Fuck you, Matt St. Combe, you piece of shit.
Matt catching strays here. All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Hey, you notice how he went to the U.S., right?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. All right. Hard money troll, everybody. This drunk guy, I can't. Sorry. Call into the bathhouse, drunk guy. Sober up a little bit. Call into the bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 p.m. All right. That's been the show, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me on this 3-hour odyssey, 3 hour, 10 minutes. What a show we've done. What a show. Catch the bathhouse tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Shout out to our lovely guest, Samuel Urban, illegitimate scholar. Check out his channel. If you want to support the show, help keep it going, patreon.com/lowvaluemail, MAIL, $5 a month. It's a cup of coffee. And for those of you who have supported, I appreciate you, because honestly, we probably wouldn't even be where we are. I probably wouldn't be doing the show right now if it wasn't for your support. So I do thank you all, and I do mean that. Shout out to Mark, our producer. Mark is integral to this show, and honestly, another reason why I'm trying to do this is because I'd like to pay him more too, and I'd like to, increase the production value of the show in general. I know it's low value, but we got to get it to medium value. That's probably the goal here. All right. That has been the show, everybody. Thank you to all of you for joining me. Have a good night, and we'll have Chad play us out. Go follow Chad. Go check out his YouTube channel. Also, I'll figure out that whole intermission thing, because I keep turning off the microphones, but then everybody's saying that you can just hear us talking. So I'm rambling now. Mark says bye. Good night, everybody. God bless. Godspeed. See you soon.
Really a poet, you know it, all my shit heroic. Empathic abilities, yeah, my face be also stoic. Bleep, blow up, nigga. That just means I'm working. They see me as a leader, so that's why I'm Captain Kirkin. These tracks from the stars, that much is for certain. You can fit this hit if you up or if you hurtin'. I'm raising my stock, not talking my feet in some Birkin. Number Johnny 5 got a fucking short circuit. Bring the track to life when I spit phenomenal. When I hit, she feel that shit in her abdominals. These rappers make me laugh like comic view, they comical. You know I got a ball out, I hit the track running just like Sonic do. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. And they tried to down me on some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Now we pulling up fresh on some slight shit. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. They was trying to get me on my hype shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah. Then they tried to down me on some KO type shit. Yeah. They don't wanna turn on my light switch. Yeah.